Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack.
And Sean Chapman.
We are here as always to talk about stuff. This week on the show, we are reviewing in full spoiler detail Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Dawn is something.
That will be our main topic. We have a couple other things to hit before then. Things we are happy about, enthusiastic about, that maybe we can get some levity in here.
Yeah. Front-loaded a bit.
Front-loaded a bit, and then let's give our spoiler-free reaction. I reviewed it on the site. If you haven't seen the movie and want to hear one of our thoughts, my written review is spoiler-free, other than what you would see in like the trailers. So I've been saying mostly spoiler-free. So you can read my thoughts.
I think anything that's not in the trailer is fair to not be a spoiler.
Right.
Yeah. Anything they market the movie on.
Yes. So like I talk about Batman and Superman fighting, it's there in the title.
Yeah.
Anyway, the movie's awful. Sean, what did you think?
Don't see this movie. Never. Just don't. Just stay far away. The movie is terrible. It is. If you like Batman, this movie's terrible. If you like Superman, this movie's terrible.
Worse.
If you like Wonder Woman, this movie, there's like 5 seconds of footage that might be mildly intriguing to you, which is not worth the 5 years of what feels like 5 years you spent an eternity sitting in that seat watching the most boring, dull, just miasmic fucking just skull fuck of boredom that this movie is. It is so bad. It is so long. There's no attention paid to any sort of characterization. The plot makes no sense. It has probably the worst villain in any comic book movie so far, which is saying something, because comic book movies have not had good villains.
Referring to Lex Luthor?
Yes, okay. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is so obscenely obnoxious that, like, I was mildly compelled to walk out of the theater probably like an hour in, and I couldn't. Because I knew we were doing this. There's
a scene I wanted to walk out at, too, and I think we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And we only stayed, both of us, I think, because we have to talk about it.
Yeah. So this is in competition with Amazing Spider-Man 2 to not only be the worst movie, the superhero movie, but also, like, the worst movie we've talked about on this podcast. Like, it's really bad.
I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is slightly worse.
I'm not even 100% positive on that.
But I was going to say, this one offended me more, because as badly as Amazing Spider-Man 2 misunderstands Spider-Man, this misunderstands Batman and Superman way worse.
Like, because Amazing Spider-Man 2 deeply, deeply misunderstands Spider-Man, but it's kind of okay for, like Gwen is good in that movie. I like her. She feels like Gwen Stacy. No character in this movie feels like the character from the comic books, with, like, the minor exception maybe being Wonder Woman, but that's not even fair because she's in so little of the movie that people are saying she's the best part. And the reason why people are saying she's the best part is because she only has, like, probably 3 to 4 minutes of screen time with a couple of sentences of dialogue. And when you only have that little amount, there's no possible way to even fuck the character up.
Well, but she is the best part because she's the only character who shows any signs of life. And I want to credit Gal Gadot with that off the bat, just for, like, she smiles. She's the one character who smiles in the whole movie.
She has a smirk every now and then.
And that's cool. But, like, that's how I'm pointing that out to say how much you have to fucking pick at this movie to find anything to enjoy.
Yeah.
And there were things I enjoyed ironically. I laughed so hard at Jesse Eisenberg, but I was doing it derisively.
I was kind of laughing on the inside at first, and then I started crying on the outside at some point of just... that villain is so obnoxious.
I hinted at this in my written review, but I'll just say it here as the last part of our spoiler-free.
Yeah.
I saw this opening night in an IMAX, half-full theater. A lot of people there who were clearly big DC fans. The guy sitting next to me had a Fuck Marvel shirt on.
That seems like, yeah, okay.
And even that guy, by the middle of the movie, seemed like he wanted to die. I mean, there was... Tell me this...
Did he, like, rip off the Arvel part and write in an E, and so his shirt just said, fuck me, like, after you walked out of that movie?
Yes, I mean, I think there was a point where, there are clearly moments in this movie, like, again, this is in the trailers, when Wonder Woman shows up, where they probably want to hold for a second for applause.
Yeah.
No one cared. There were no laughs. There was no applause. There were a couple moments where, like, poor Lawrence Fishburne, who we'll talk about. Poor Lawrence Fishburne.
My God.
He'd try to make a joke, and some people in the audience would be like, kind of like just trying to be nice to the poor guy. But no one... And somehow it made $170 million and is the biggest opening weekend for any Warner Brothers movie ever. Fuck us all.
Yeah. I mean,
we're to blame. We paid to see it. Whatever.
Yeah, that was the worst part of the movie, is knowing that I contributed even that small amount. I mean, I went to a standard showing, so it's like I deliberately, even though it was hard to do because the theater near me only had like 2 times. It was like 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. So we went to the 1 o'clock standard viewing. I was like, I'm going to minimize the impact that I'm financially contributing to this movie.
And I used a coupon. So
yeah, there you go.
But a coupon I got by buying a DC animated universe movie, so I feel good about where my money went.
That's the right way to do it.
Yeah. I still had to pay a little money for the movie, but,
Yeah.
I minimized it as much. We both minimized it. So, Sean, let's talk about a couple things that are good, though.
Yeah. Before we get into the real shit.
I want to start with something adjacent to this, I guess, which is that last week we did an episode that was well received. I had a lot of fun with it, where we did we ranked all the Batman and Superman movies.
Yeah, that was a great time.
Yeah. A lot of better movies on there.
All of them. All of them were better movies. Literally, I would much rather watch Superman 3 and Superman 4 as a double feature than to watch Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. I would be enthusiastic.
You'd get to watch Christopher Reeve.
Oh, God, yeah. Like, watch actual Superman
but
for a second.
One of the discoveries of that for me was I saw the 1966 Batman movie with Adam West and Burt Ward and fell in love with it.
Great movie.
This week on Amazon, they had a gold box sale because of the Batman Superman movie, where they had all these Batman and Superman Blu-rays for like big discounts, and they had that giant box set of the 1966 show where they released the whole thing, and it's got like the Hot Wheels replica car and all that.
Great.
For $70, and I'm like, I'm buying that.
Yeah, that's a good price.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. And I've been watching that show, and I'm 7 episodes in, and I just want to say that is a phenomenal show, and it does not. I even think among people who love it and like try to get the word out there, it doesn't quite get credit for how good it is.
Yeah.
Because the movie we talked about is just fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Yeah.
And that's like probably the funniest scene, but there's lots of great scenes. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, with the show, it would obviously be very hard to keep that tone going for 120 episodes.
Yeah.
And just do that, 2 times a week. The show aired twice weekly. It's kind of like Doctor Who in that they will do
Doctor Who.
They're all 2-parters, so they're all 25-minute 2-parters, and kind of like, so Doctor Who would do 4 or 6-part serials. Yeah. This does 2-part serials, and they aired twice a week, so kind of like that. But it would be hard to do that if you were doing glib jokes the entire time. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it is tongue-in-cheek. It's got a great sense of humor, and it knows what tone it's going for, but it's also telling stories.
Right.
And the stories they tell are they are legitimately great superhero stories. The second serial, I guess it's episodes 3 and 4, is the first one was the Penguin. And the whole idea is that, so the Penguin is getting out of jail. He's being released because it's his time. He's been in jail long enough. They're letting him out. And Batman at first wants to give him the benefit of the doubt because Batman in this show trusts law and order. And he's saying, I trust the penal system. We have to give him a chance. He's like a upright, upstanding, moral person. Looking at you, Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
And anyway... Anyway, and
we'll
so he wants to trust the Penguin, and the Penguin is doing something nefarious, but they can't figure out what. And what you find out is the Penguin's whole plan is he spent 5 years in jail trying to figure out what to do, and he couldn't come up with a good idea. And someone suggested, man, wouldn't it be great if you and Batman worked together if he was a criminal? And so what the Penguin comes up with is that he's going to just do a bunch of random shit. Like he sends all these rigged umbrellas out and stuff, and he's going to bug the Batcave. He does that, something like that. And he's going to listen in and have whatever Batman deduces and comes up with, he'll execute that plot.
That's a great fucking plot.
That's a great plot. And they really follow through on it.
Oh,
and
my God.
It's so interesting. So Batman comes up with this elaborate plot for the Penguin to do accidentally, and the Penguin does it. And then they fight. And it's such a good story. And Burgess Meredith, his Penguin, one of the best superhero villains ever. And I love all the villains on that show. Cesar Romero's Joker is great. I forget the name of the guy who plays the Riddler, but he's so good. They're all great. But the Penguin is my favorite on that show, and it's just so fun. I can't wait to get to the next Penguin episode. I'm on a Mr. Freeze one right now, and that's the weirdest one because Mr. Freeze...
Yeah, that's pre-DCAU Mr. Freeze.
Because the Hearts of Ice or whatever it's called in the animated series, they basically redid what Mr. Freeze was.
Yeah.
So that one's kind of funny to realize what Mr. Freeze was before then. But it's a great show, and just things I love their conception of the characters, where Bruce Wayne, he's the head of the Wayne Foundation in this, so he's running a charity, and that's what he does every day. He runs a charity, and then, when he's not doing that, he's being Batman, and he's always, and his young ward, Dick Grayson, which is what the narrator always introduces him as, his youthful ward, Dick Grayson, he's always trying to teach Dick different things, this episode will start with Dick doing his studies, and he'll be like, well, gosh darn it, Batman, I just can't get my mind around French. And Bruce Wayne will say, Now, young man, remember, language is the key to world peace. If we all could understand each other, the scourge of war might be ended. And Robin will say, well, gosh darn it, Bruce, you're right. I'm going to study even harder now. And there's something about that I love so much.
Yeah.
Because Bruce Wayne in this version, he is just on all fronts. As Bruce Wayne, as Batman, whatever. He is completely committed to just doing good in whatever little way he can.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I'm not saying Batman needs to be silly. I'm not saying Batman needs to be candy-colored all the time, but you can bring that into a more serious Batman.
Yes.
And I think the animated universe actually has a lot that it took from this. Because if you look at that, anytime they show Bruce Wayne outside of being Batman, he's trying to do good things. He's not running a charity, it's Wayne Corp, but he's trying to, kind of walk them on the straight and narrow, Yeah. And I love that, and I just wish there was more of that, because it's such a compelling version of Batman. I really think you could take a lot from the 66 series, do it now in a slightly more serious tone, and it would feel like a great version of Batman. And it is the 60s one is great. And part of it is just, I love all things 60s film and pop culture. It's just a great era for cinema and TV. And, these Blu-rays, oh my god, because this show was shot on 35 millimeter, it looks fucking gorgeous now. It's kind of like if you've ever seen the original Star Trek on Blu-ray.
Right,
like that. And it's just, there's nothing better. So it's been a ton of fun. I love that show. You can get it, there's that Blu-ray box set, there's DVD box sets you can get on iTunes, Amazon, Vudu, whatever. And it's such a great show, and if you've never seen it and you just know it as kind of that silly Batman show, it is that, and it's hilarious, but it's also more than that. And I would just, again, I think Adam West is the best live-action Batman, and I say that without irony. I just think easily he's the best live-action Batman, and god damn it, he's a better Batman than what we got in this stupid Zack Snyder movie. I don't blame Ben Affleck, but
he is Batman in that old Batman show.
Yeah.
Batman does not appear anywhere in Batman v Superman, despite the title.
Yeah.
There's no Batman in that movie. I was looking really closely, and I was a little confused, but Batman never shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, I just want to talk about that. It's such a good show. And, yeah. And if you just want to start somewhere easy, do start with the movie. That's probably the easiest thing to jump in with.
Yeah.
But, the first episode, another clever plot is the Riddler sets something up where he has Batman basically falsely arrest him, and then the Riddler sues Batman, and the plan is if he sues Batman, then Batman will have to take off his mask in court.
Great. That's great. That is a great plot.
Yeah.
That is an amazing comic book plot.
Yeah. Anyway, so good. All right, Sean, what have you been up to?
I've been in my recent past, I have just been moping after watching Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Before that, I was having a pretty good time. I finally finished Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. That's an awesome game. It has a really good ending.
Awesome.
The last boss is a lot of fun. The last Digimon you get, if you do all the extra challenge cases and unlock the most powerful ones, they have really awesome abilities. And the last boss fight is designed in such a way to sort of force you to use your entire party of Digimon in a way that's really fun. And then I just really love the way the story wraps up. So Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth gets 2 thumbs up by me.
I keep putting it off. I'm ordering the game right now.
Just do it.
It's $38 on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's just a good price.
It's a really good game.
Okay.
And then after I finished Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, the day after that, I was thinking, okay, I should probably get started on another game. And I was looking at the PSN store, and I was thinking, I was basically faced with a choice of, do I play a new video game? Because there was The Division, and there was Far Cry Primal, and I was looking at both of those. I'm like, I feel like I should probably play a new game. But then I kept, just in the back of my mind the entire time, I was thinking, but I really don't want to play The Division or Far Cry Primal, because after I played the beta of The Division and then read the reviews, even though some of the reviews were fairly positive for The Division, everything in the actual text of the review told me that all my worst fears about the beta were true about the full game, and that game... There are things about the premise of that game in terms of you being basically the super National Guard is what The Division is. And so the entire premise of the game is that New York gets quarantined off by a virus, and the Division is trying to sort of get things under control. And when I played the beta for the Division, it's the very beginning of that game, and it's only 2 missions, and those 2 missions are basically you going and you're killing a bunch of quote-unquote looters, which is just a bunch of people wearing hoodies. And it was there's some political stuff around that's this feels very uncomfortable for me doing this, but it's just the beginning of the game, and I can't fault it too much because surely eventually this game is going to turn into trying to find out who like created this virus and set it off in New York and stopping the bioterrorists. Because that's something that I can get behind and feel like I'm doing probably the good thing, the right thing in this scenario by fighting the fucking bioterrorists that have destroyed New York. Apparently, all of the Division is more or less you going in and killing what they tell you are looters, and without like ever there being like an actual villainous menace for you to defeat. So basically, the entire game is you. And this is like a line that they use like in the beta that I use. Like this one lady is like, "We're going to take New York back," and in the back of my mind is like, "Yeah, we're taking New York back from all those American citizens what live in New York City. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker! Let's go kill everybody." That's what the Division is about. So I didn't want to play the Division, and I think Jonathan, you would understand why I did not want to play the Division.
I have a horrified look on my face right now because you can probably gather what our politics are on this scenario, but it's
pretty fucking.
It's an annoying thing in video games where it's something that put me off Call of Duty at a certain point and things like this is the rampant military boner that winds up being, and you can have your military boner without also just trampling on brown people and American people's rights.
Yeah,
There's a great, I don't know if you ever watched those Honest trailers on YouTube.
Yeah, I do.
The one for Call of Duty is so great because it's just them saying, you're going to shoot brown people in the Middle East, in South America, in America, in Russia. And it's like, it's so true. That whole series is just, if you actually think about it, politically incorrect in a way that I find sickening. Yeah. And everything I saw about the Division, and I didn't say anything because I did not have all that an informed opinion, but it looked like it was also kind of disgusting to me.
Oh, God, it's like 100 times worse.
Hearing you say that, I'm like, yeah, that was my worst fears confirmed.
Yeah. So I didn't want to play the Division.
And I think we've had enough of our worst fears being confirmed this week, Sean.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So I avoided playing Tom Clancy's The Division, and I, mildly considered playing Far Cry Primal, but I'm like, there have been so many Far Cry games recently, I was like, I just can't do it. And I was like...
You'll come back for Far Cry 5.
Yeah, definitely. And so it's like, fuck it. I don't need to play a new game if there's no new game interesting me. And so I got Uncharted the Nathan Drake collection, which is Uncharted 1, 2, 3.
Good. That's
remastered on the PS4.
One of the best purchases you can make on your PS4.
Oh yeah, indefinitely. So at this point, I finished Uncharted 1. I blew the fuck through Uncharted 1. I was amazed by how quickly I played that. And it wasn't
really short.
I wasn't actually even really planning on playing through Uncharted 1 all the way through. The main reason, because I mainly wanted it to replay Uncharted 2 and 3, because I had pretty negative memories of Uncharted 1 overall, of it being a good game but very flawed. But then because I downloaded Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, and how that works off of the PSN is that, it's what a lot of PSN games do this, but it's usually really kind of funky. Is it like you being able to play the game while you're downloading it? And usually it's like hey, you can play the tutorial level of the single player, and then you just hit this wall after playing for 5 minutes. It's like, we need to download the rest of the game. But the way that the Nathan Drake collection handles it is that it downloads about 9 gigs out of the overall 44 gigabyte package. And after it does that, you can start playing Uncharted 1 because it basically, since it's sort of just a big pocket for 3 different executables for the different Uncharted games, it's like it will more or less download all of Uncharted 1 relatively quickly because it's a smaller game in comparison to the other ones. And then you can just play through that while it's downloading the other ones. So I was like, well, fuck it. I'll start playing Uncharted 1 with the intention of playing an hour and then probably stopping.
Uncharted 1 is really good.
Uncharted 1 is really good, and specifically, Uncharted 1 at 60 frames per second is a lot better than Uncharted 1 at 30 frames per second, because that is a game whose combat is really clunky, and having a much smoother frame rate and playing on the DualShock 4, which has analog sticks worth a damn, makes it so it's just aiming the reticle over enemies and pulling the trigger is a inherently sort of satisfying video game action to take place, whereas in the original game, all of that felt so messy and so clunky because they didn't have auto aim, and they still don't. It's just fine now. With a high frame rate and a good controller, I don't need auto aim in the game. In the original Uncharted 1, it just felt terrible. And it still has, the cover stuff is clunky. But just aiming and shooting feels so much better in this version of the game than it did in the original release.
It's funny because when I played Uncharted 1, and I've only played the Nathan Drake collection versions, but I had heard, Sean, you talked about on this podcast that you said you didn't hate one or anything, but you just thought it was subpar compared to the others.
Yeah.
So I went in with low expectations, and I loved that game. And I think 2 is a step up, but I didn't find it to be as significant a step up as maybe I'd heard.
Yeah.
And I kind of, it's good to hear you say that now, because, and part of it is just, I think when you go back and know what the game's flaws are, you can look at it and say, well, what it does well, though, it does just as well as the others, which is the character writing, the performance.
Yeah.
Some of the platforming is great,
Yeah, but it is something where it's like, in the original versions of those games, I think the jump from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 is much more pronounced, because I just finished the big train part of Uncharted 2, so I'm like halfway through that one. And so, yeah, but like the gap is much smaller between Uncharted 1 and Uncharted 2 when it was compared to the original releases. And that's like, so I'm having a great time. Like, I'm enjoying those games way more now than I did originally, even though I liked them originally. Like, there's something that I think, like, really that frame rate does a lot for the combat in those games that makes it, like, I'm having a really good time. So I would recommend anyone listening who has either never played Uncharted, absolutely get this collection. Amazing. But even if you haven't played Uncharted and you're not like fully in maybe on the idea, I would give it a shot. I would at least download the demo, because there's a free demo that has the section on Uncharted 2 level where you eventually get into the big building that collapses while you're inside of it.
Oh,
that part's in what the demo is. And like, I would play through that and sort of see how you feel, and like maybe think about giving Uncharted another chance. Not that like I don't think nobody feels it's bad, but I think like this version of it is significantly improved in a way that most re-releases aren't.
Right. But Blue Point Games did the remastering. They do great work. They primarily do remasters, and all the ones they've done, they're like the best ever done for those. They really do good work with those. So, but I this week actually finished the Nathan Drake collection, because literally we finished our podcast last week. I went home and started Uncharted 3.
Good game.
Oh my fucking god. As I've said on this podcast, I loved Uncharted 1, loved Uncharted 2, but I have issues with both of those. I think Uncharted 3 is a practically perfect game. It is so fucking great, and I think it solidified for me what I love about the series overall. Like, because I think it is great, and it is clearly the best of the 3 to me.
Yeah.
But it didn't get there on its own. Like, you have to go through 1 and 2, and part of that is what gives Uncharted a step up over Indiana Jones or any other adventure series to me, Tomb Raider, whatever you want to say, is that the characters evolve.
Yes.
And there's something so satisfying about that, in that you have the main 3 characters, being Nate, Sully, and Elena.
Yeah.
And his relationship with Sully evolves until you get to 3, and that game is all about him and Sully and their kind of father-son relationship. And I actually was really frustrated in 1 and 2. There are stretches of 1 and 2 where Sully is absent, and I was always sad because he's such a great character.
He's so good.
He's so good. But he's there for the whole time in 3, basically, and it's very much about that relationship he and Nate have. But it's also, you have Elena, who in Uncharted 1 is just kind of the female foil, but she's a really good character.
Yeah.
Better than a female character in any fucking Bond movie, Indiana Jones movie, any of those. Yeah. She's great. And, but it's not really romantic in that game. Then in 2, it becomes romantic. Then in 3, they're married but estranged. And there's this crushing scene where Nate gets back from basically the boat scene in Uncharted 3.
Yeah.
You know it if you've played it. And he is beat to hell. And he just says, he's lying on the couch, and he knows he has to get up and go fight again. And Elena, is still kind of mad at him for good reasons. Yeah. And he just says, I'm sorry. He just kind of finally says that. And she says, I know. And they just sit there for like 5, 10, 15 seconds. Mm-hmm. It just hangs. And, oh my God, it like hit me really hard.
Yeah.
And, these are not dark games. They are very light. No. They are very fun. It would never suggest the darkness of The Last of Us, for instance.
Oh, right, yeah.
Coming from this. But I do think there's so much DNA between Uncharted and The Last of Us in that they are both so good at character work that whether you're doing a light, fun thing or a dark, sad thing, I think the characters resonate equally well. And Uncharted 3 is the height of that, while also being, I think, gameplay-wise the most fun. I don't think the shooting is great in any of the Uncharteds, but by the time of 3, it's perfectly serviceable.
Yeah.
And the thing 3 figured out over 1 and 2 is pace. Because you said you got through the train sequence in Uncharted 2.
Yeah.
That's where I would turn that game off and never play it again, because I think the last third or so of Uncharted 2 is just a dreadful bore.
I think the stuff right after the train part is pretty good.
That's
when you get to Shangri-La and the blue people start showing up, that's when the game kind of goes off the rails.
It's just shooting for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And my favorite parts of Uncharted are the puzzle solving or the platforming.
Yeah.
And the great thing but by the time you get to 3 is that you're never doing one thing for too long. Like, there's never a part where you get tired of the shooting, you never get tired of the platforming, you never get tired of the puzzles, and some of those puzzles are brilliant in Uncharted 3. There's like that one where you have to, It's almost like, looks like Nate says it looks like a game show, and you have to line up all these symbols. It's so cool. But anyway, so by the time of Uncharted 3, like, I blew through that game in basically 2 days, and since then, I fell in love with that game so hard. I've spent the last week trying to start a bunch of other games and then just not doing it because it's like, I want to play more Uncharted, and I don't have any. And one of those, I did try Uncharted Golden Abyss on the Vita, and then I'm like, nope, not doing that.
That game's like, you play that game for like 5 seconds, like, this is an Uncharted game that it was not made by Naughty Dog.
Yeah, it's really, like, Sony, please don't continue this series after Naughty Dog's done with it.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah. No one else would know how to do. This is, like, so Naughty Dog, this series. You can't, anyway. But yeah, so it's like, finally finishing the Nathan Drake collection just left such an impact on me. Do you ever have that where you have trouble starting another game?
Yeah, definitely that happens.
It's tough. So I've got.
That was like after like post Persona.
Yeah.
For both 3 and 4, I had that issue.
But that Nathan Drake collection, I was happy to finally finish it and put it on my shelf because I have the physical disc. But that is one of my most treasured PS4 games, and I'm sure I will revisit it many times because it's fun. And now, good God, am I excited for Uncharted 4?
Yeah. I had a little trailer for Uncharted 4 before Batman v Superman.
Best part of the whole experience.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. That was the best part of my trip.
What's great is that I, after finishing 3, I went on YouTube and just watched some of the announcement trailers for Uncharted 4 that I had seen but had no context for, and I got so psyched. Yeah. I'm like, this game looks so good. It's Naughty Dog's first actual next-gen game, even though we've now played all of their last-gen games on the PS4, which is funny. But yeah, and I actually even went back and played about an hour and a half of The Last of Us. And I've played that game like 2 times, so I might finish it, I might not. But it is fun to play the Uncharted games and then play The Last of Us. And even though The Last of Us is radically different, they couldn't get there without Uncharted.
Yeah, so there's clearly, like you said, especially with the character stuff, and not just like the character writing, but how they incorporate like the character animation and the voice acting and everything into the gameplay. There's a clear DNA of like you seeing how they like evolved that concept over the course of those Uncharted games to reach Last of Us.
So great. So I'm very excited for those. What else was I going to say? Only other thing I wanted to mention is I saw Kotaku posted this, and I checked, and it's true. Today's the 5th anniversary of the 3DS launching in North America.
Huh.
And 5 years with the 3DS, that's awesome. The 3DS has been a great system. I've talked about it a lot. I even was toying around a couple days ago with a list of just like, what are my favorite 3DS games? Because there's so many good ones. But I'm just going to bring that up and read some of these because from the last year, or the last 5 years, that's been one of my primary gaming systems. And, it might be on its way out soon. 5 years is a long time for a handheld, and Nintendo has new plans. But just listen to this lineup of great games. Mario 3D Land, which I've said is one of the best Mario games.
Yep.
The remasters, Zelda Ocarina of Time 3DS, Majora's Mask 3DS, the latter of which I think gave new life to a flawed masterpiece.
Sure, yeah.
Mario Kart 7, Super Smash Brothers, which I've played 83 hours of on the 3DS.
Super Smash Brothers for the 3DS.
For the 3DS.
Not the one that's for the Wii.
Yes. Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates, the trifecta of Fire Emblem Fates. Pokemon X and Y, Bravely Default, soon we're going to have Bravely Second, Persona Q.
Yeah.
And tons of other Atlas games I haven't touched, but if you like Atlas games, you should have a 3DS because everything is on there.
Yeah.
And then just little things like Box Boy and Pokemon Picross and Mario Golf, and they even had a port of Donkey Kong Country Returns for the 3DS. And that's just the ones I've played, and there's lots I've missed. So 5th anniversary, that is a great system. I've owned 3 of those damn things because they keep updating it, but I've been happy to do so every time. So I just wanted to mention that because that went fast, 5 years.
Yeah, so that feels like I feel like the 3DS came out yesterday.
I know, and it was a success, and I hope whatever Nintendo does for their next console, they learn from the 3DS and not the Wii U.
Yeah.
Because one of those worked, and one of those
really didn't.
Even though I like my Wii U, but commercially, no.
Nope.
Anyway, so that's that. And then I'm going to skip this piece of news, Sean, and I just want to go straight to one trailer that came out this week, and I think this will launch us into our review of this awful movie. Warner Brothers released a trailer for the Lego Batman movie, which is a spin-off of the Lego movie, which came out a couple years ago. Everyone loved that movie. It is so fun, and my favorite part of it, and I think a lot of people's favorite part, was Lego Batman, played by Will Arnett, who is like a great parody of the grimdark Batman that we've had lately, and unintentionally a parody of the Batman we got in this movie.
Yeah.
And Will Arnett is just so good in that part, and it's such a fun version. I think the idea of doing a whole movie is really fun because there is a good lineage of Batman being funny. Yeah. And I love that that's going to be a major thing that kids could go see because
Because kids should not see the Batman movie in theaters right now.
I was about to say that because I think that is one of the honestly most offensive and disappointing things about the current one is that it is wildly inappropriate for kids.
Yeah.
And Batman should maybe skirt the line, but in a major movie you're marketing partially to kids, it should not be what it was.
No.
And so I like that they're going to have this alternative.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it just because that Lego movie was so good. And again, I'd like to have a funny Batman again. That could be a lot of fun. So, yeah, and that trailer was great. I don't know if you didn't see it.
No, I didn't.
It's great. Clearly they know what worked about that character in the Lego movie, and they're bringing it back. So that's great.
Yeah.
They know what character they have, and they're going to fashion a plot around him that works for the character they created.
That sounds like a good way to make a movie, Jonathan.
All right, let's dive right into it.
Yeah.
We've already spent 30 minutes, and this could be a long discussion, so strap in, kids. Oh, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Yeah, that's a bad title.
Spoilers a-ho. If you haven't seen it, don't.
Yeah, really don't.
Go read a plot summary or something, and
then be like, none of this makes any sense. So then I will not go see this movie.
And we're going to talk about it, make fun of it. And here's the thing. I suspect most of our listeners probably have seen the movie because it made an unholy amount of money.
An unfortunate amount of money.
Which we'll talk about that later because it honestly surprised me for a number of reasons. Not just that it got bad reviews. Movies make money with bad reviews. Although this is unprecedented. To have a movie this high grossing with that bad of reviews never happened.
Yeah.
Never happened.
I think it's like at a 29% right now on Rotten Tomatoes. I checked a couple hours ago.
No movie with a over $100 million opening weekend has a tomato score that low.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's pretty... It's fucking dismal.
I mean... Doesn't that prove that they could have made literally anything, put Batman and Superman in the title, and it would have made money? Because you couldn't have done much worse.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Where do we even start with this, Sean? I have a thought.
Sure, yeah. I'm like just a seething ball of disappointment and rage.
I want to start with the point where I felt like the movie hit me hardest.
Okay.
Not in terms of like the movie working, but in the movie I realized how bad it was. Yeah. And this is how I framed
when the other shoe drops.
Right. This is how I framed my written review. But it's when the actual fight between Batman and Superman comes.
Okay, yeah.
And everything leading up to that is bad, but everything after that is somehow worse. And what it is to me is that, I mean, obviously the stuff to get them into the ring is retarded, and we will talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But it starts, if you see this in IMAX, actually, they didn't even advertise this. It does the Chris Nolan thing where they shot scenes in IMAX, and the ratio shifts.
Yeah.
Whatever, they didn't even advertise it, but it happens. And so they go to full IMAX, and Batman's in his metal Batman suit, and they're about to fight. And I honestly was queasy with how offensive and bad I thought that sequence was, because it is 10 minutes.
In like a bunch of different ways.
In a bunch of different ways. Yeah. And the core of it is that it's completely one-sided.
Yeah.
You're meant to hate Superman by the time you get there. Mm-hmm. And then it's just 10 solid minutes of Batman physically assaulting Superman. Mm-hmm. I mean, it made Frank Miller look subtle and nuanced.
Yes.
Because if you read Dark Knight Returns, there is motivation for everything. There is thought to everything. I don't like all the ideology, but Frank Miller thought it through.
Yeah, there is there's thematic stuff at work in that fight scene in Dark Knight Returns.
But it's also not like Batman is taking joy in punching Superman in that. He's doing it because he has to, but it's not him just brutally assaulting Superman. And you're just watching that for like 10 minutes. You have one iconic hero who is the least heroic version of himself beating the shit out of another iconic hero who is the most paper-thin version of himself. Yeah. And that's meant to be exciting. That's the key point in this giant landmark movie of Batman v Superman. It boils down to just one character beating the fucking snot out of another. I thought it was disgusting. I wanted to get up and walk out of the theater. The only reason I did it is because we had to do this podcast and I wanted to write a review of it. But I just... It made me queasy. I was just looking at it, I'm like... And there were kids sitting next to me, you know? Yeah. And I'm thinking, what are they thinking? You know, they want to go see a movie with Batman and Superman, and what they're watching is an angry fascist beating the shit out of a petulant little boy, who is what Superman is in this movie. And it's way too violent. The movie, I think, frankly, should be rated R in its current version. There's been a lot of stuff about that. I don't think this is a PG-13. Fuck you if you think Batman taking a fucking sink and breaking it over Superman's head and then picking him up and throwing him down a flight of like 100 stairs. No, that's not a PG-13. I'm sorry. There's no blood. That doesn't mean it's okay for kids.
Yeah.
And so I'm angry about that. And there's no motivation going into any of this. It's just violence for the sake of violence. I think it is ideologically fascist, and I will talk about that later.
Yeah.
It is disgusting on every level, and at that point, I went from being kind of amused at the badness of the movie, being fascinated at what they had poorly constructed, to being just kind of angry and sad and broken down. And I know that's a tone that came across in my review, because my review is very dark, and some people have told me that. But that's how I felt afterwards.
Yeah.
And that scene was kind of the linchpin of it for me, so that's where I wanted to start.
I mean, yeah, this is a movie that hates Superman. Like, really, really fucking hates Superman. It's something where, like, if... there's so much, obviously, criticism about the end of Man of Steel that, like, very much earned criticism about how Man of Steel treats the Superman character and the way that the Man of Steel treats violence in that movie, with all the collateral damage, with all the destruction, and no thought ever spent to the concept of heroism at all in that movie.
No.
And so everyone... I mean, even people who like Man of Steel say that shit is fucking bullshit and that part of the movie is bad and should have been done differently. And then the people like me who really hate Man of Steel really, really don't like that part of that movie. And everyone said, or like all the defenders of the movies were saying, hey, like, this is like their first movie for Superman. It's like an origin thing. He's not real Superman yet. It's like, we will, like, in a sequel, they'll fix this. It's like all of this was on purpose. None of that was on purpose. Zack Snyder he obviously has no idea what the criticism about that movie was about at all.
No, because in this movie, he does even more of the mass carnage, and all he does is has a character say, oh, don't worry, it's uninhabited, but goes bigger. There's more mass carnage in this than there was of Man of Steel. He doesn't get it. He didn't listen. He's an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. That's Zack Snyder, like, coming out of Man of Steel, and you think, like, watching the first Batman v Superman trailer and all this stuff, like, the opening of the movie is Bruce Wayne in Metropolis at the end of Man of Steel and all that stuff. And everyone's like, see? Like, it's part of the movie. It's part of the storyline. It was the plan all along. Like, the thematic thing about this movie is about, like, oh, man, like, Superman has, like, caused all this destruction, and that's, like, all this stuff. And then you watch Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, and... at no point in the course of the movie do you ever feel like Zack Snyder understood anything about that criticism. And instead of, like, incorporating that criticism into the movie and sort of, like, making a better version of Superman or making a more sophisticated sort of discussion around those themes of, like, collateral damage and all that stuff, instead of, like, turning in a different direction, he leans even harder into the course that they were already heading on, the Man of Steel, to the point where, like, this movie... like you said, it despises Superman, and the violence is disgusting in that scene where Batman fights Superman. It is disgusting just in terms of, like, there's no character resonance here. There's no reason for this fight to occur. I don't give a shit about any of these characters on screen, because none of them at any point in the movie did they bother to ever try to give Batman or Superman, or the characters they call Batman and Superman, any sort of character. And, like, any, like, mild character that you felt that Superman really had left at the end of Man of Steel, that's not present in this movie at all.
Henry Cavill is horrible in this, and I don't think it's his fault, but he's awful.
Yeah.
It's a bad performance, and I think we both agreed he's good in Man of Steel.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the best Superman ever, but he's good.
Yeah. And so in that Batman v Superman scene, all that scene is basically watching Batman in his stupid fucking power suit throw a kryptonite bomb at Superman and then throw him through a couple of walls, and then they have like a little bit of Superman can kind of fight back, and then he gets hit with another kryptonite bomb, and Batman throws him through some more walls, then, like, hits him with a kitchen sink, like, throws him down a flight of stairs, tries to stab him with, like, a spear that, like, gets into some, like, fucking, like, if you thought the Christ imagery in Man of Steel was over the top, wait till you get to the end of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice if you think that Zack Snyder understands nothing about, like, the thematic, like, components of the Christian religion and of Jesus Christ as a historical or allegorical figure. Man, this movie makes you really convinced that dude knows nothing about what the imagery he puts in his movie actually, like, evokes. But yeah, in this movie, in that scene, they just brutalize Superman or a character they claim is Superman for no good reason, for way too long, in a fight scene that's also just terrible. Like, the action scenes in this movie are bad.
Yes.
Like, even the one, like, the Batman scene that was in that trailer that looked like, oh, that, like, looks like that'll probably be a good fight scene. In the movie, it's a really bad fight scene.
It's better cut in the trailer.
Yeah, it's like, it's almost, like, the editing of it is almost incomprehensible in the actual fight scene. And then also, that's one of the many areas where you see Batman...
Just
kill people. Yeah, just kill people. And so, yeah, the everything about the premise of the movie that, like, even people that are just, like, don't give a shit about anything else, the one thing that this movie that, like, at least they could have tried to deliver on would be a fun fight scene between Batman and Superman. They fail spectacularly in that regard. Like, everything about that fight scene is terrible. Just, even if you don't give a shit about how, like, excessively violent it is and how uncomfortably brutal it is and how there are some, like, really gross fascistic underpinnings to the idea of this, like, violently brutal, self-righteous piece of shit Batman beating up Superman, who is supposed to be the symbol of hope. Like, there's some, like, really gross stuff going on there if you're, like, trying to dissect the thematic elements of that scene. But even if you don't give a shit about any of that stuff, the fight scene's just boring and bad. It's just... And everything about this movie in terms of, like, the filmmaking is more or less bad. Like, all the editing is terrible.
Oh, the editing is awful.
Like, this is, like, they should have put another, like, or there should have been, like, a warning at the beginning of this movie, or a message at the beginning of the movie, is, like, telling the audience to play a little game to see how long can Zack Snyder go for this movie in changing locations and not showing an establishing shot. Because it's like, you go for, like, a dozen different, like, random locations where it's like, now we're in the desert, now we're in Metropolis, now we're in Gotham, now we're in someone's office, now we're outside, now we're in a park. It's like, never is there an establishing shot. Did establishing shots kill Zack Snyder's parents in front of him? What is that? What happened? When did Zack Snyder forget how to make a fucking movie?
You get no shots of Gotham. You don't know what Gotham looks like in this movie. That's one of the number one, like, if you know nothing else, filmmakers love trying to show what Gotham is. Yeah. Chris Nolan loved it so much, he did 3 different Gothams.
Yeah. That's like the best part of the original Tim Burton Batman movie.
Yes. There is no... I mean, here in talking about that, I want to go back to the beginning of the movie in a second, but while we're on the topic of the bad editing, basically the first hour is just jumping around doing different plot points, right?
Yeah.
The best bad moment of editing is I forget what comes before it, but you just randomly cut back to the Daily Planet for no reason. Yeah. And Lawrence Fishburne is there saying, "Where's Clark?" And someone says, "Oh, we don't know." And he says, "Oh, does he just tap his heels and go back to Kansas?" And normally that's a setup where you would cut to Kansas.
Where there is a scene earlier in the movie that they cut to out of fucking nowhere.
Yes.
Where Superman is talking to his mom, who's named Martha, and that is very important.
We're going to get to that. I laughed so hard.
He's talking to Martha Kent, and she's giving, like, basically she's saying what Jonathan Kent said in Man of Steel of, you should maybe be a hero, or maybe not. I don't know, Mrs. Clark. Just do whatever you want. We're really great moral figures for you that are providing you some really insightful guidance. Maybe you should help people, or maybe you shouldn't. I don't really care. Go do whatever you want. You're not even my real child.
At least Amazing Spider-Man movies, they tried to do the Uncle Ben thing of...
Martin Sheen was pretty good as Uncle Ben in Amazing Spider-Man 1.
They didn't say the line, but he says the content of it.
Yeah.
So Spider-Man still has a moral base in those movies. Yeah. No. Okay, so anyway, you have that Lawrence Fishburne line, and then it cuts, and in all film grammar... I've seen a lot of films, guys.
Yeah.
You've all seen a lot of films. In all film grammar, you only include that scene because you're setting up a cut to Kansas.
Yeah.
And instead it cuts to Batman. It cuts to the Batcave, and it's like 5 more cuts before we get back to Superman, who's not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for that little clip to exist. It feels like...
I mean, it feels like that scene where he's in Kansas earlier in the movie is supposed to go after that. Yes. Because there are so many scenes in this movie that you could place anywhere in the movie the way it currently is fit.
It
would make as much sense. Like, you could just put, like... You could just, like, stuff all the subplots into, like, a, like, just sequential of, like, Lois Lane's entire subplot just gets stuffed into, like, the same, like, 5-minute block instead of it just being, like, dispersed throughout the first 2 acts of the movie. And it would still make as much sense as how they do it. Like, there's no sense of, like, continuity or contiguity in the scenes of the movie. Like, it's just random fucking shit just is happening all the time. It's just... It's insane the way this movie's edited.
I have a mild sadistic, masochistic desire to watch that 3-hour
director's cut.
Because I wonder if Zack Snyder made that, said, Zack, you can't have a 3-hour R-rated cut. And he's like, oh, fuck it, someone else cut it. And then they just gave an intern, like, get it down to 2.5 hours. And the thing is, it's probably just as incoherent at 3 hours.
It must be. I can't imagine what would be.
I'm just wondering if it's mildly rearranged.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you said earlier, I'm done defending Zack Snyder. I'm sorry. And I do think he's talented in some ways. I don't think this movie completely dissuades me of that. There are some visual moments that work very well, even if most of them are fucking dream sequences that come out of left field.
But there's so many dream sequences in this fucking movie.
We'll talk about that later. But no, this is not the work of a good filmmaker or a professional filmmaker. And I do think he was put between a rock and a hard place. I don't blame him 100% because he's not the one who said, let's include every superhero under the sun in this fucking thing. But he made a shitty movie, and you can't. Seen a lot of I still like Zack Snyder. This wasn't his fault. No, he's the credited director on the movie. You can't say that. This is not David Lynch's Dune.
This movie is not directed by Alan Smithy.
No,
you're right. Yeah,
he has proudly put his name on the movie. He is out there stumping for it.
Yeah, he's defending the movie in interviews now.
Quit defending him in part because this, and we're going to get back to the fascism stuff, and that is my biggest problem. But that goes to a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Ideologically, this movie is fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
And there have been hints of that in his other films, but it is full bore here, and you can't defend him anymore. I'm sorry. He's not the right guy for these movies. He's not a good director at showing subtlety, nuance, humanity.
Character in any way.
He's really bad with women. We'll talk about the misogyny in this fucking movie. But, thank God he's not directing Wonder Woman. That would be just the most sexist thing ever made. But I'm done defending the guy. This is awful, and he should be kicked out of fucking Hollywood for it. This is not excusable.
Remember last week when I said that he was becoming the Frank Miller of movies?
Yeah.
I fucking called it, man. I fucking called it.
Again, Frank Miller would look at a lot of this and say, calm down, dude.
80s Frank Miller. Today, Frank Miller would be like, you're not going far enough, Zach. What are you doing? We have to have him fighting the jihadists in fucking the Middle East, man.
Yes. Well, but when I say Frank Miller, just assume I'm talking about the Frank Miller we all know and some of us love. I don't know.
Have some affection for it the same way you do the creepy uncle who only comes by on Thanksgiving.
All right. But let's go to the beginning of the movie because I think all the problems with this movie can be traced to the second scene, which is Bruce in Metropolis. But let's start with the first scene, which is the death of Bruce's parents. Again.
Well, it's the first dream sequence. Oh, it's because it's the death of his parents, and then him intercut with him running around at the funeral, which is, I think, technically a dream sequence, or either that or Batman can actually fly throughout the entire movie.
Doesn't matter.
And he just didn't do it.
Doesn't matter.
But I kind of want to keep a tally as we go through it of all the dream sequences we can remember happening, because there are a lot.
Oh, okay.
It's really silly.
So 1 on the dream counter.
Yeah.
But that opening scene, it's baffling in so many ways. They do opening credits over this. And the title of the movie is in the lower right-hand corner.
It's the worst title card or title moment of any movie I've seen in a very long time.
Are they just using Calibri? What is that font?
Yeah, it's the most lazy, it's how amazing it was in Guardians of the Galaxy when the title popped up on screen? This is the polar opposite of that. That was this triumphant, amazing moment that set up everything about the tone of that movie. And this is they were about to send the movie out to theaters, and then they were like, oh shit, we forgot the opening credits. We didn't put the title of the movie at the beginning. It's Zach, what should we do? And he's just types out Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice on Word, which would be a Calibri font in 10 point or 11 point font. Just put that in the front. It's okay, edit it in, ship it out, good.
That part is baffling. And the rest of it is it's pretty standard. Bruce's parents die.
Except for one really massive detail that they changed.
And that's what I wanted to talk about, because this movie is a fucking treatise on toxic masculinity. Yeah. And it starts with, instead of Thomas Wayne trying to defend his family, he tries to
talk the guy down.
He tries to fight the mugger.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing?
It's so... I mean, that's how, I think for me, one of the main points of stuff about this movie that I think is the worst part of it is how they completely 100% thoroughly misunderstand basically every single character they have in the movie from their comic book versions, and that's like most pronounced in Batman and Superman. And so in the very first scene, they already completely fuck up Batman.
Yes.
Like they've already and in the same way that Zack Snyder must have some hate in him deep inside of him for mentor figures in stories. Because the whole thing with Thomas Wayne is like Batman Begins did it fantastically.
Yes.
The whole thing with Thomas Wayne is he's supposed to be this really morally upstanding guy. He's a doctor who has inherited all this wealth from the business, and he is trying to use that to do good. And so then when the mugger comes in, like I think there's supposed to be some understanding for Dr. Thomas Wayne that how much privilege his family has in understanding why the mugger is trying to mug them and just trying to calmly talk him down and not escalate the situation and not even necessarily call the cops on the mugger because he knows the socioeconomic factors that go into this. Like he's supposed to be an extremely intelligent, kind man. In this, it's just you get this weird little montage at the beginning of the movie of them walking out of the movie theater. A dude just walks up to them in broad day, or not broad, in broad nightlight, which is what most of the movie is. But in the night, just walks up to them on the sidewalk. They didn't go through an alleyway or something. There's no crime alley here. They're just on the sidewalk. A dude walks up, pulls a pistol on them, and then it just it's the slow montage of Thomas Wayne just winding up a punch when the guy is standing right in front of him.
With a gun?
Yeah, it's with a gun pointed at him, and so the dude shoots Thomas Wayne, and then they do the whole fucking Dark Knight Returns thing with the pearl necklace with the mom.
Except she gets shot in the fucking face.
Yeah. She gets shot in the face. And because what breaks the pearl necklace is not the guy trying to grab it off her neck like in Dark Knight Returns. It's the slide of the pistol going back.
It's so sadistic.
Yeah. And it has a sort of misogynistic tone.
Yes.
Because you brought that up earlier. Yeah, and it kills Martha and kills Thomas. And then Thomas's last words are Martha, which is they're trying to really set up a plot point that's a really stupid plot point to try to set up.
We'll make fun of that in due time, Sean.
Well, we just need to... We're going through it.
We do need to compare this to Batman Begins, though, because, watching this, you realize how privileged we were to have Chris Nolan on these things.
Yeah,
a guy who is thoughtful and empathetic, because one of the main themes of Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and I don't think it's so much there in Dark Knight Rises, is empathy.
Yeah.
And that scene in Batman Begins where the parents die is tear-jerking. To this day, to me, it's so emotional because it's where both Bruce's life goes off track and where his moral code comes from. Mm-hmm. Because he sees his parents try to do the right thing there. Yeah. And then, as you said last week, there's that scene where he thinks about shooting the mugger, but he ultimately pulls back, and then he spends the rest of his life... He's not just trying to fight criminals, he's trying to understand them. And that's a big theme. And it's one of the things I love in The Dark Knight is why those speeches work in The Dark Knight is it's Bruce and Alfred trying to understand the Joker and being confronted with something they can't understand. And that's why that movie is so interesting. Mm-hmm. But it's a natural flow from that. In this movie, no. It's Batman... I mean, he fucking talks about criminals being weeds like someone from Watchmen.
Yeah. Or like someone from The Division.
Yeah, who fucking Alan Moore was parodying Frank Miller in Watchmen.
Oh yeah, that's another thing about this movie that you now thoroughly realize about Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder did not understand anything about what the Watchmen was about.
No.
The Watchmen movie is still at least entertaining, which is not something you can say about this movie. No. This movie is a fucking slog.
Well, and we always knew that about Watchmen, the way he glorifies Rorschach, which Alan Moore does not do.
Yeah, but it's very clear off of this movie now that it's because this movie is practically a fucking Watchmen movie anyways. This Superman has way more to do with Dr. Manhattan in terms of not being a human at all. And this Batman has way more to do with Rorschach in the sense of he just straight up fucking kills people all the time.
Yeah, so from the very beginning, you fucked up Batman's origin in a way that is irrevocable. You can't... If the inciting moment in Bruce Wayne's life is seeing that violence should just be met with violence no matter the consequences, that's what he learned, and he never has to learn that mistake in this movie. There's no... And I do think there are hints of a Batman story I would watch in this. I think they're unintentional. I don't think the filmmakers get it.
Yeah.
But... I would like to see a story that maybe is interrogating Batman's use of violence. I think you could do that. Yeah. And in this movie, it's no, he should just, even when he realizes he's wrong about Superman, whatever, it's fine. Because he was, men do what men do, and that's great.
Yeah.
Boys will be boys is the theme of the movie, and it's fucking disgusting.
It's...
All right, so first scene, awful. Second scene, I think... So the second scene is Bruce in Metropolis seeing the end of Man of Steel.
Yeah, the thing from all the trailers.
I want to go to a quote from Roger Ebert.
Okay.
Roger Ebert once wrote about the movie The Birth of a Nation. Now, if you don't know Birth of a Nation, that's the 1915 film. It's the first feature film in American history. And it's famous because D.W. Griffith established a lot of the cinematic language we now use, but it is also a famously very racist movie. It is about the founding of the Ku Klux Klan and how the Klan saved the white people in the South from the angry black people, all of whom are white people in blackface. It is an incredibly offensive movie. If you are a student of film history, you do need to see it because it's an important part of film history. But as Roger Ebert wrote in his review of that movie, it is a great film about evil. And, and it being an evil film, and it is an evil film, what it preaches is evil, does not stop it from being a great act of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And you could say the same thing about Leni Riefenstahl's work in the Third Reich. I'm going to talk about this later because Zack Snyder loves Leni Riefenstahl. And there are cinematic quotes in this movie from her Third Reich films. And so, like, the Triumph of the Will, things like that, the big Hitler documentary from the era of the Third Reich. Those are well-made films about evil, and it's possible to have both. I think that scene, Bruce in Metropolis, is the best scene in this movie, by far. I think it is a great scene about something I find disgusting, which is showing Superman basically as Al-Qaeda on steroids.
Yeah.
It is a really effective scene at getting you to hate all things Superman. Because it is absolutely horrific. It is, effects-wise, it's incredible. It's the best edited and choreographed scene in the movie.
Yeah.
You could actually build an okay Bruce Wayne off this, I think, because at least in that scene, he's trying to do the right thing for once.
Yeah.
And Ben Affleck, who we'll talk about later, I think poor Ben Affleck, he's trying so hard in this damn movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, but that scene, I realized from that scene, like, we're in trouble because you can't come back from this.
There's no making, like, because it reminds you how much this Superman is not Superman.
Yes, because you're drawing attention to the thing you shouldn't be drawing attention to, which is people fucking dying, a little girl almost. I mean, the kicker of that scene is Bruce Wayne hugging a little girl as she points up at the sky and said, Superman killed my parents.
Yeah.
And, you have the Wayne employee who got his legs chopped off. It's like, no, there's no redeeming Superman, and once you see that, I don't believe any human on Earth would think Superman is a hero. Because basically what they're doing is Super 9/11. There's no one on Earth who thinks Al-Qaeda are heroes.
Yeah, other than
Al-Qaeda, yeah. And that was 2 buildings they brought down. But Superman brings down an entire city.
Yeah, and then makes out with his girlfriend afterwards.
In the ashes of 1,000 dead people.
Yeah, because then the worst thing that it does, though, is that after it does that, it never, because this is just like, this movie just never gives Superman anything to do, but it's like, after you do that, you need to, because if it's Batman v Superman, like, you need to establish both of the characters thoroughly and equally to make that in any way compelling, but, like, they don't, like, give Superman's side of what happens there. And obviously we saw in Man of Steel, but we don't see, like, don't cut to him, like, thinking back to what happened and, like, mourning the fact that he wasn't strong enough to save people. He never reflects on his actions. He never reflects on his actions in this whole movie. He never gives a shit about anything in this whole movie.
No, the first scene with Superman in this movie is him fucking Lois Lane in a tub.
Yeah. Which is, like, also, like, draws attention to the fact that, like, I don't think Henry Cavill and Lois Lane really did. Who plays Amy Adams? That's right. No, like, they have no real chemistry. Like, their relationship was one of the, like, worst parts of Man of Steel because it was just
even worse here.
Close. It felt so cookie cutter there. It feels only here because Lois Lane is such an obligatory character in Superman fiction, and because she was in the last movie and was probably contractually obligated to be in this movie, so they couldn't just cut her out, I assume. So, like, that feels like the only reason Lois Lane is in this movie at all. And that whole scene of Clark coming in and she's, like, in the bath naked or whatever, like, all that feels, like, off. It just feels wrong.
It's also gratuitous nudity with a talented actress. Not that you should do that to any actress. I'm just saying this is an acclaimed Oscar-nominated actress who you have in this movie in her first scene just so you can have her naked in a bathtub. It's disgusting. There's no reason for that scene to be there in the way it is.
But I think we missed...
We're going to go to it.
Okay.
But, so we're done with the Metropolis scene.
Yeah.
And you agree with me, like, it's Zack Snyder putting all his filmmaking talent into doing something despicable.
Yeah, and to really, like, shooting his own movie in the foot in a way. Or, like, maybe not shooting his own movie in the foot, but shooting, like, the movie I want to see in the foot from the fucking get-go.
There's no coming back from it, because there's no argument you can have Superman have in that where he is in the right.
Yeah.
Because just the way they frame it, I mean, you are completely on Bruce Wayne's side, and then somehow they make Bruce Wayne seem unreasonable. That's how bad this movie is.
Yeah.
Like,
but it is like, because we just have gone through the first 2 scenes of the movie, and those first 2 scenes have basically told us they fucked up Batman and they fucked up Superman. And that's the first 2 scenes. And then you have to watch the entire rest of the movie being like, they've already fucked up Batman and they fucked up Superman. How much more can they fuck up these characters that are so iconic? And there's so many ways to do these characters right. How did they get them wrong? And man, they fucking go places with that little adventure.
And honestly, the third scene is even worse, because that's the one in their fake African country.
Yeah.
And Lois Lane is there, and the first 2 things that happen in the movie proper, like I would say those first 2 scenes are a prologue, now we're in the movie proper.
Yeah.
The first 2 things that happen is Jimmy Olsen gets shot in the face.
That was Jimmy Olsen?
That in the credits, he is Jimmy Olsen. They shot Jimmy Olsen in the face in the first scene.
Why would you do that? Like, they didn't even say his name in the scene. Why would you kill off Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen?
Zack Snyder hates Superman.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Why would you do that? And is Jimmy Olsen working for the fucking CIA in this movie? What the fuck? What the fuck? I had no idea that was supposed to be Jimmy Olsen.
I did not. I thought at the time, like, it's a photographer working with the Daily Planet. Is that supposed to be? And then I looked online and everyone was mad about it. And I checked in the credits. That actor is credited as Jimmy Olsen.
What the fuck?
That's how much Zack Snyder hates all things Superman. Because there's that line later about it not being 1938 anymore. All this stuff. He hates Superman so much he kills Superman's best friend in the first scene.
Yeah, that's... Wow.
So you have that.
Wow.
And then the next thing, the first thing you see Superman do in the movie proper is kill a guy. Yeah. Because there's no way that guy lived.
It's like, you kill Jimmy Olsen... You take Lois Lane hostage, and so you damsel in distress Lois Lane is basically the first thing she does in the whole fucking movie.
Yes.
Which sets up some stuff they do with her later in the movie as well.
Yeah.
And then Superman shows up and does the most it then sets up like a series of Superman doing very non-Superman-like things, which is, I have seen this scene a billion times in comic books, in cartoons, whatever, with Superman, where Lois Lane is in danger, someone is threatening her, or like not necessarily Lois Lane, but anybody, and Superman comes in. The first thing Superman would always try to do is talk to the guy.
Yes.
And try to talk him down. But as soon as it was clear that wasn't going to happen, he would zoom over there really quickly, faster than anyone could react, and destroy the gun.
Yes.
And that's like, I have seen this scene fucking more times than years I've been alive, goddammit. And like, that's how that scene goes down, because that's the kind of dude Superman is he doesn't just immediately use violence to solve every single situation he runs into. In this movie, the fucking piece of shit that is pretending to be Superman in this movie just knocks a dude through like 5 concrete walls, and yes, he is absolutely dead.
I don't care what Superman says later, that dude is dead.
That dude is a pancake on the ground. Like, it's done. Like, his organs are spread all over the continent of Africa. Like, that's what happened to that dude after Superman tackled him.
It's just like, that General Zod scene in Man of Steel, obviously it's bad, but at least they gave some indication of a reason in that he is immediately threatening a family.
Yeah, and at least Zod is an incredibly powerful opponent. He's not like a random African dictator dude that's just a normal human that Superman could incapacitate in a million different ways without having to kill him.
So my point
or even really hurt him that much.
Right. So Superman didn't have to kill Zod, but that scene, it's not the absolute worst version of that scene.
Yeah, like, I can see you forcing Superman to kill Zod. It's been done.
But this is, nope, he's just, first thing he does, kill a dude. Yeah. That's how much Zack Snyder does not give a shit about your criticisms or your Superman.
Yeah.
And then he fucks Lois Lane in a tub because Superman, for kids.
Yeah, he's got a real big boner after that murder. Like, that's like, he's just like hot off that violence, man.
I want to go back, though, to you said, the first thing is he would try to talk.
Yes.
How many lines do you think Henry Cavill actually has in this movie?
Not a lot. Like,
it has to be on the call sheet pretty low.
Yeah.
Lex Luthor definitely has more.
Oh, yeah. Batman has more. Lois has more.
Lois has more. Perry White might have fucking more.
I would say Perry White's probably competitive with the number of lines that Superman has.
And he's in like 5 minutes of the movie. Yeah. Because you have all these scenes where Superman should say something, and he says nothing.
Yeah, like the majority of Superman's screen time in this movie is either him in a fight scene or him in a like weird montage. And that's most of it.
Or him scowling as Martha Kent or Lois Lane try to talk him into thinking he's good, even though he's not.
Yeah.
Because that's that scene.
Or are they even really trying to talk him into thinking he's good? I don't know what anyone's trying to do with Superman.
We'll get to that. But, that tub scene is he comes in, he's got flowers for Lois, which starts out like, okay, he's got flowers. But then it's him trying to talk about, he's like, no, I'm a hero, okay? I saved you from the Afghan. Then why are they mad at me, Lois? He's just a whiny little bitch.
He's a petulant idiot. He just has no idea what he's doing at any point. He never, it's amazing how they had that whole first movie to try to establish their Superman character, and one of my main criticisms was, at no point in that movie did he ever become Superman. And that's what you want in your origin story, is at least at the very end of the origin story to be like, that's Superman, or that's Spider-Man, or that's Batman. This character has finally become the hero who have advertised in this movie. That's what I want an origin story to be. And he never did that in Man of Steel. And then everyone, the people defending the movie, is like, but it's okay, it's the first one, that'll be the sequel. Somehow he is even less Superman to a significant degree in this movie than he was in the first one.
Yeah, because he clearly doesn't want to do any of this. He feels like he just has to, which is so not Superman.
You never really get a sense of him having some sort of intense compassion for mankind at any point.
The only scenes in which anyone in this whole movie does anything vaguely heroic is that montage of him doing different heroic deeds.
Yeah.
But that's the focus of that scene is other people talking about Superman, and throughout that scene it's him doing those things with this conflicted, miserable look on his face. Man, I just want to go home and watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and the way the scenes are shot, this entire movie just feels so gloomy. There's no brightness, there's no color to it. And then most of the talking heads, because that's actually one of the best parts of the movie, because you just get to hear Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about Superman for a minute, and that was my favorite part of the whole movie by a significant margin, because I could just listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about anything,
right?
And it'll make me kind of happy. But yeah, other than Neil deGrasse Tyson talking at the end of that sequence, almost that entire montage is made up of talking heads talking about how bad Superman is.
Yeah, which he is in this. Yeah. He is indefensible in this universe.
Yeah,
and yet there is this conflict in the movie. Starts in that scene in the tub with Lois trying to tell him that he is a symbol of hope for people, that he is this there's in that montage there's all the people reaching up towards him and all this godlike imagery. Why would anyone on the planet Earth, given the kind of figure he is and what we've seen, think that about Superman?
Yeah. Well, I'm massively confused throughout this entire movie what people actually do think about Superman. Because I feel like the public opinion of Superman jerks back and forward 5 times across the movie with we're all way into Superman. Now we all hate Superman. Yay, Superman hates Superman. Yay, Superman hates Superman. Oh, Superman.
Because they've got those Senate hearings going on, but they've also got a fucking monument to him in the ground zero that he created.
Yeah, which is really one of the weirdest parts of the whole movie. Just completely inexplicable.
Look, if Osama bin Laden had a statue in the middle of the World Trade Center.
Yeah, of ground zero. Yeah. It's really just insane.
Yeah. So,
and there's a weird element of, because they have the dude whose legs got cut off, graffiti the statue and say false god, which was in all the trailers, and you have all these policemen coming up, all this sense of that it's this sanctified memorial. It's it's a statue to the dude who's half responsible to what happened. Why are you all? It's not like he didn't deface the wall down there that has all the names of the victims on it.
Right.
This is the statue of the dude who's semi-responsible for it. Why are you all so worshipping this?
But that's what I'm saying. The movie has no idea how the public should show Superman. There's this whiplash effect. But either way, there's nothing to really fully defend it. There's no
reason for them to really love Superman at all.
No, and even the way they hate Superman, they're not even hating him in the way I feel like people would in this scenario.
Yeah.
And I can already hear the internet comments of it's a movie, don't take it too seriously. The movie wants you to take it this seriously, guys.
The movie wants you to take it very, very seriously.
Zack Snyder thinks he's Chris Nolan and wants to be film school, let's break this down. You know what? You can do that with the Dark Knight movies. You cannot do that with this. Or if you do, get ready for some burns because you fucked up bad.
Yeah.
You fucked up real bad. So anyway, there's all that. Then at some point we meet... How do we meet Batman in this? I don't even remember. It's such a...
Okay, this movie, just like we said earlier, the editing in this movie is so terrible that half of the movie you could just flop, like, switch the order of the scenes.
Put it on shuffle. Yeah.
It would make as much sense. But yeah, like... there's just like 100 scenes where you just cut to Batman with Alfred, and he like and Bruce Wayne's is saying something like, "Oh, if there's a 1% chance that he's our enemy, we have to act on it with absolute certainty," which is like the stupidest fucking political philosophy.
So I think I have 2 talking points here.
Okay.
So there's a couple of specific Batman scenes I want to talk about.
Okay.
But first off, let's just do the more general macro level view.
Okay.
It's so hard to talk about any of the performances because I don't think it's anyone's fault. But
sure, yeah.
I did like Ben Affleck. Like, I felt like in an alternate universe where he got to play, like, Chris Nolan's Batman.
If he got to play a character that I could confidently assert is Batman, then maybe he could have done a good job.
I think he's trying so hard. Like, the only moments in this movie where I ever felt vaguely engaged with what was going on were the Lex Luthor scenes, because they are it's like looking at a train wreck.
Yeah.
And the Bruce Wayne early investigation scenes, because I think Ben Affleck, like, quietly is doing a lot of acting. I think he's trying to show conflict. I think he's got a good level of charisma. I think a lot of stuff is working against him, but I think if this were a better, smarter, more faithful take on the character, or just a take that gave a shit, I think he'd be walking away with that. He's really trying, and I think he's got the essentials, but he, as you say, he doesn't get to play Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, literally, he doesn't get to play Batman because you only see him in the suit a couple of times, and then it's so poorly edited, he doesn't get to show a performance there. Like, say what you will about Christian Bale, in the suit, he's giving a specific performance.
Yeah.
I think it's a good one. I don't think it's a great one, but he's being Batman.
Yes.
In this, you really only see Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, and then as Batman, he's just a special effect. I mean...
Yeah, that is basically what it feels like.
So I think Ben Affleck's trying, and I liked Jeremy Irons as Alfred more than I thought I would.
Yeah, but like...
Again, not a lot to do.
I mean, yeah, the thing with, like, I thought Jeremy Irons was pretty good as what they had him be, but their Alfred was just, like... It felt like their Alfred said the same joke about 24 times, and, like, every time they would cut to him, he would make the same joke about, like... I am very exasperated, and you are an asshole, Bruce. Well, and that's every single scene. That's every line that Alfred has. He's just hitting that button again.
All I was saying is that they have him playing generic Alfred, and at no point was I taken out of the movie by he played generic Alfred very well.
Sure, yeah, but like it's not his fault, but like the lines he's given. Like, how many times does he mutter to himself, like, well, but that's never going to happen, because, like, it's like, oh, maybe you'll find, like, this woman and settle down, but that's not going to happen because you're an asshole. It's like,
right.
He does that, like, literally at least 5 times in the movie.
He does.
It's insane.
And it's the other problem that, even though this is much more of a Batman movie than it is a Superman movie...
By a large mark.
Batman only has one other character. It's Alfred. Yeah. Superman, you have all the Superman characters and Lex Luthor and all these other people... Batman has no one else to play off, and I think that's actually a really big problem in building that character, is he has one person to talk to, and it's Alfred, and Alfred's not... I think Jeremy Irons you only see in the Batcave.
Yeah, I think so as well. There's that one scene where they're at Wayne Manor, which has inexplicably been burned down, and I have no idea where... Batman lives at the fucking, like, little, like...
Lake house.
Like the lake house that is from the end of Godfather Part 2 where fucking Fredo gets shot. Like, it looks exactly like that building. I'm like, where is the Batcave? Like, where does Batman live in this movie?
If there's anything we can assume about this Batman, he really respects Michael Corleone.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Anyway, no, so there's that. But I think the first significant Batman scene is the rescue of the sex slaves. And
sure, yeah.
Boy, is that a problematic scene.
That's a weird scene.
It's weird on so many levels. I mean, they're doing the Batman reveal as a David Cronenberg horror film.
Yeah, like, and also one that's really silly because there's, like, a fucking shot where the police officer goes up to, like, that top level and goes into the room, and then it's, like, the whole, like, it's got a very, like, John Carpenter Halloween effect of, like, Batman is fucking, like, up on in the corner of, like, the ceiling against the wall.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, and the camera just sort of shows it in the background out of focus, much like Michael Myers in, like, the window in Halloween and stuff like that. But and the first time they do it, it's kind of effective because you just see in the background, like, oh, but then they cut back to that same shot and hold on it for, like, a second too long to the point where, like you said, it gets really silly. It was like, don't look. I'm just a wall. I'm just a wall. There's no Batman here. Just don't look at me. I'm just a wall. Yep. Master Ninja. Wait, no, I'm not. I'm just a wall. Yeah, it's really ridiculous. And then he like, the guy shoots at him with a shotgun, and then Batman, like, climbs out of the room like he's a gorilla or something, like, punching through the drywall. And, like, it's shot like a horror movie, but that's the only time in the entire movie they do that with Batman, and it just feels like... It feels like that was, like, test footage they shot for a Ben Affleck Batman movie that then would be, like, turned into an actual scene in the movie and, like tightened up a lot more.
It's test footage, and then you look at it and go, that didn't work, let's try something else.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like when you watch, you can find the audition footage of Tobey Maguire for the Sam Raimi movies where he has, like, a fight scene outside that it almost kind of reminds me of that, of, like, them trying to sort of, like, get this sense of what the character is supposed to be like, but not in a way that's going to be actually used in the movie.
Yeah, because it's funny. We're going to talk about... We're going to have to take this by thread, because I don't remember scene by scene.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about some Batman stuff for a while.
Okay.
But we've got, this scene. We've got the chase later where he tries to get the kryptonite. We've got the dream sequence in the future. We've got the
There's a number of... There's a dream sequence and a dream sequence.
I know. But there's that. I'm just talking about big action scenes with Batman.
Okay.
And there's the one, with Superman, and then there's the one with Doomsday.
And there's the one in the trailer.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's 6... Those are 6 different, very, very different Batman scenes.
Yes.
And Zack Snyder didn't know how to shoot one of them except the dream. And it's like, I thought if Zack Snyder could get any hero right visually, it would probably be Batman. Nope.
Yeah, he can't decide on a consistent version of the character. And that's true of Batman and Superman, but we'll get to the Superman way that's true. But yeah, definitely for Batman, I feel like it is hard for me to just, like, tell, is he... At some points, it feels like he just wants this Batman to be just a straight-up, just killing dudes Batman. And sometimes it feels like it kind of pulls back from that. And the way where he goes most in on it is in that one dream sequence with, like, where Superman has taken over the world or whatever. And then that's where he's just straight up shooting people. Like, he just, like, has an AK-47, and he kills, like... a couple dozen people in that dream sequence, and, like, at the very end, they're, like, restraining him, and while they're trying to restrain him, he just, like, snaps a dude's neck that's on the ground. That's like, that's unnecessary, Batman. Like, are you just trying to kill every single person you can?
But it's telling that is by far the best choreographed action sequence in the movie.
It's the one that has, like, the strongest sense of editing, the strongest sense of, like, vision of what that scene wants to be. Yeah. But what that scene wants to be is, like, evil Batman in this, like, alternate universe where everything has gone wrong and Batman is evil, like the way that, like, all of this movie feels like it takes place in some weird alternate universe that's, like, an alternate universe that, like, the actual Justice League goes to and fights the Justice League from this universe that is evil, the Justice Lords from, like, the Justice League cartoon.
That's Donna Dickens on HitFix. I read some of her stuff, and she said the only way you can do Justice League after this is to say we were watching the Justice Lords universe, and the next movie is the actual Justice League going to kill these guys.
Yeah.
Not kill them because they're heroes.
But gets trapped in their universe and has to defeat them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So, no. What was I going to say about Batman? I want to go back, though.
Okay.
It's telling in that first scene where he's saving the sex slaves.
Yeah.
That, again, there are only 2 scenes of actual heroism in this movie. There's the montage with Superman, and then there's Batman saving sex slaves. And it is telling that Zack Snyder's vision of what Batman being heroic is saving a bunch of scared, shivering women in a basement who are being sold as sex slaves.
It feels it's a Frank Miller scene.
Yeah, this guy really hates women.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's no other way to put it in your film. That's what your vision of heroism is just women are weak and the strong masculine guy has to save them.
Yeah. And then also in that scene, like, the police officers come upon that dude who's chained to a radiator, who's been beat to shit and has the Batman symbol branded into his skin that you then later find out from news footage is used to tell basically criminals in prison to kill this dude.
Yes.
Which, again, it's like... Because there's things that can happen in darker superhero stories where writers want their, like, superheroes to kind of kill but they can't really have it happen. So they kind of, like, it's almost like Batman Begins has a version of that at the end with Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul, where Batman tells him, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. I have some problems with that, but I think it's kind of fine in that movie with the context. This feels like the most pathetic version of that, where it's like, we really want Batman to basically be able to kill people, but we can't. But then we do. But for now, that hasn't really happened yet. So instead, we have him brand people like they're cattle so that when they get sent to prison, they are all killed in prison, which is just killing people. Like, that is, like, you get sent to jail for doing that. That's not like you're okay, you're clear in the law. No, that's fucking murder.
It's worse than that, though, because you're doing it in the most sadistic way possible.
Yes.
Of having, like, this extra layer of fear. It's clear that Batman could just kill the guy, but he wants him to be scared and let...
I mean, there is a part of that scene where you do feel like Rorschach would be watching this like, dude, calm the fuck down. Again, like, holy shit, what are you doing?
Frank Miller today would like that. I think 1980s Frank Miller would look at that and say, take a step. I mean,
just like...
people were, like, passing this around over the weekend. You know, that panel that's fairly famous in The Dark Knight Returns where he says, guns, we will not use them. They are the weapons of the enemy.
Yeah.
That's what Frank Miller, at one point at least, thought of Batman. No, Batman in this, guns are his favorite weapon.
Yeah. There's like his
Batarang? No thanks. Give me an AK.
Yeah, he only uses batarangs to heat them and tear into their enemies' flesh with them, or as like a little calling card when he steals kryptonite. Those are the two uses of the batarang in this universe.
I really hope Adam West never sees this movie because the dude's 87 and it would give him a heart attack.
Yeah.
And we can't lose Adam West.
Yeah, to see what his legacy has become.
Yeah. God. Anyway, so let's keep talking on different Batman topics. Because that's kind of we'll have to do like Batman, Lex Luthor, Superman, because they're threads that are just, as you say, on shuffle.
Yeah.
So you've got that. You've got, I mean, the kind of red herring for a while is Batman is investigating this whole white Portuguese thing. Yeah, but really he's just trying to find kryptonite so he can go murder Superman, because that's what Batman would do. He wouldn't go try to talk to Superman.
No.
And be like, can we sort this out a little bit? Because Batman also tries to talk to people. That's thing about Batman.
He doesn't just kill people at random.
And that's why we have the issue, honestly, in a lot of these superhero movies of the Batman voice. And it's, again, I totally understand why it's a tough thing to do. But you have to have Batman is a verbal character.
Yeah.
But he's not going to use his normal voice. Kevin Conroy did it the best. Christian Bale's didn't work totally. But you see the logic behind both of those.
Yeah.
In this, they do something with the Bat voice, but it doesn't even matter because he doesn't talk.
Yeah, he has like a couple of lines in the Bat suit. And like half of these lines in the Bat suit are like already really distorted from his suit getting all fucked up in the Superman fight.
Yeah. And they're mostly about him saying, I'm going to teach you how to be a man.
Do you know that you bleed? Like, shut the fuck up, you fucking 13-year-old piece of shit. Like, grow the fuck up, Batman.
Yeah.
God damn it.
All right. So there's the scene where he goes to Metropolis to investigate at the party, and that's where we meet
the
Wonder Woman.
Lex Luthor's party.
That
scene just feels like it goes on forever. Like there's how many times does Bruce Wayne he's like at the gala of it, and then he goes to like the back, and then he comes back, and he goes to the back, and he comes back. It feels like that happens like 5 fucking times in that scene. This is like okay, I know who scripted this movie. It's David Goyer, but it's like you're watching the scene. It's like, who scripted this movie? There's no economy at all in this movie. Like, scenes just go on repeating the same actions again and again. Lois Lane has a terrible one in the last fight that we'll get to. But that scene is just like Bruce Wayne does the same thing like 5 fucking times.
I want to correct you. It's David Goyer and Oscar winner Chris Terrio, who joins the ranks of Oscar winners who have no business writing superhero movies, trying to write a superhero movie and failing miserably. Because what I understand is David Goyer did one pass at this, and then Chris Terrio did the rest. So probably, if you actually have to blame anyone, it's probably Chris Terrio.
Okay.
Because he did more of the work, I think. But again, David Goyer is tied to this. He wrote Batman Begins. That dude has fallen so far.
Yeah.
He was the credited writer on Batman Begins. He's the credited story person on Dark Knight. I don't think he's credited on Dark Knight Rises, and then he wrote Man of Steel. His career makes no sense to me.
Yeah. It's a weird, downward arc that you don't really expect.
And it's clear in all the Chris Nolan Batman movies, Chris Nolan was the key architect of the narrative. I don't think it really mattered who wrote them. And Chris Nolan wrote the last two, so you know that. But anyway, it's I would not be surprised if we one day learned that the Batman Begins script was actually mostly written by Chris Nolan and David S. Goyer's name was on there for guild reasons or something. But anyway, so I just wanted to make that note about the writers. This one is not going to be winning an Oscar.
No.
Anyway, so you've got all that. It's such gibberish, but I mean, what other... Let's talk about more about the dream sequences, because that's where it gets weird. Because the main arc is just, it's clunky, but it's Batman trying to find the white Portuguese, which is actually a boat so he can get the kryptonite, and Lex Luthor somehow knows all of this and is manipulating it.
We will get to Lex Luthor.
It's gibberish, but it's not the most offensive gibberish in the movie.
No.
Where the gibberish gets really weird is in that first dream sequence. So he's got the data... he's decrypting it, and then we cut to, and in the IMAX version, it's a full IMAX scene, so it's really putting it in your face. We're now in the desert. It's a future dream thing.
Yeah, it's like Terminator. It's like Terminator Salvation is what it looks like.
Yes, and visually, it's probably the best scene in the movie.
Yeah.
Narratively, nope.
Narrative is like, this should have just been cut. Like, this movie's 2.5 hours long.
I mean, I'll just give my one-line zinger on this right now. It's all the dream stuff, and this scene most particularly feels like Zack Snyder wanted to do superhero psychodrama by way of David Lynch dreamscapes, but he's not talented enough to do that.
No, not even close.
But do you see, like, it's trying to do that?
Yeah, it is trying to do that. And, like, it's the repetition of it. Because there's also, I don't know, this maybe comes after where we are, maybe it's before, but there's also that other one where he's, like, at his mom's grave, and, like, it starts bleeding, and then a big bat comes out, and then he's like, huh, and he wakes up, and there's a woman in his bed next to him that never, like, talks. It's like you just see in the background, and she just, like, disappears. Like, I kept on waiting for that woman to have a line in the movie, and it's like, nope. He just walks out in his underwear and talks to Alfred, and Alfred delivers his, like, one joke again.
Yeah.
And that's that whole scene.
Batman probably killed the woman and, like, threw her in the lake.
Yeah, I mean, we never got a shot of, like, any part of her body other than, like, her back, like, draped in blankets, so it's very likely that her throat was just slit, and she was just burned all over the front with bat symbols. That's probably what this Batman fucking does, because he's a psycho killer in this movie.
All right, and as a psycho killer, what he dreams about is
killing so many people,
all in the name of fighting this evil Superman. I mean, there has been so much talk online about what this scene is supposed to mean, and I know you just saw the movie, so you probably haven't been exposed to that. But what did you take away from it?
I mean, it's supposed to be that Batman thinks that Superman will take over the world, so Batman has to kill Superman. And there's also a bunch of parademons, which are a dark side thing, that are in that sequence, which is where it gets really weird at the end. And then that's... Because one of the things about that sequence that I feel like I don't fully under... They're clearly setting up something that they're going to do in the Justice League, and I don't know if that dream sequence was entirely a part of it. Because this is where the dream sequence in a dream sequence comes in.
Right.
So because you have that whole scene... And, like, he kills all these people that, like, it's like a kryptonite deal gone bad. And Superman comes in and like, fucking bisects 2 other prisoners and then goes to where Batman is and says something about, like, you killed her or whatever. It's, like, supposed to be this is a universe where Lois Lane has died and it might be Batman's fault and that made Superman go evil, which is, like, one of a dozen, like, evil Superman stories that have been told 1 billion times over. And then Batman wakes up. And then the Flash comes through a time portal, because, and also all of this is set up, I love the beginning of the dream sequence is him looking at a progress bar at his computer, and he wakes up, and the progress bar is still going, and then the Flash comes in from a time portal, and he's like, Bruce, you were right about him, it was Lois Lane, wait, did I come too far back, what? And the time portal closes, and then Batman wakes up again, and then the progress bar is done, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? What? And it's obviously supposed to be a setup for something that has to happen in the Justice League movie. I don't know how any of this is going to ever make sense.
There are a lot of comparisons we're going to make on this podcast to different Marvel movies.
Yeah.
The one I would make here is to Avengers Age of Ultron. You have Thor's dream sequence.
Yeah.
And that scene clearly was not... It was kind of cut to shit, and it's confusing. Nowhere near as confusing as this.
No.
Because in that, you can at least take away... Thor is anxious about his home.
Yeah.
And he has some...
Like, someone is gathering the Infinity Gems.
It's coherent, right?
Yes, yeah. And it's like, it's short and sweet, it's to the point. This one, it's just like... it's hard because also so much of the movie is trying to be so stylish that it's impossible to tell at the beginning whenever a dream sequence actually happens. And so you're just constantly lost when those sequences occur. And then them trying to, like, shove in this weird time travel plot that's going to come in the Justice League movie into this dream sequence and a dream sequence. It's just so bizarre because then it feels like they're trying to set up that first dream based on what the Flash says is something that actually happens in the future and Batman was having premonitions of it. And then the Flash comes back in time.
But it's still a dream within a dream, so is any of it supposed to be real? Or
because also the very end of the movie, Lex Luthor is talking about, like, he's coming in a way that, like, supposed to be, like, Darkseid, which doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know how the fuck Lex Luthor is supposed to know anything about that. But the parademon stuff in that dream sequence is also setting up Darkseid being the villain in Justice League, which, of course, he would be. So, like, all that stuff is, like, so distracting. And if people think that like Iron Man 2 has too much stuff of trying to set up Avengers, like this movie just explodes whenever it's trying to set up Justice League. It's just like going along its way in its own meandering way towards its plot, and it's like Justice League's gonna happen, and then it's like goes back and like as if none of that occurred. Because like Batman just like wakes up from that like insane dream he had, and then that insane dream he had in that dream he had, and just never mentions it. And then later he knows that the Flash exists because they set up that with like the computer files. So maybe he doesn't make the connection like because it doesn't quite look like the same dude. But, like, I would expect to be very rattled if I just had a dream where some dude ripped a portal in time and was telling me, you were right about him, it's Lois Lane, And I would maybe look up who the fuck Lois Lane is. Because Batman meets Lois Lane later in the movie, and nothing comes of it. Like, He doesn't say anything.
It's so weird. But maybe we're losing the forest for the trees a little bit here. I want to back up a little bit because you mentioned Iron Man 2.
Okay.
I hate that people are comparing this to Iron Man 2.
Yeah, that's a bad comparison. Because that's a pretty good movie.
Iron Man 2 is fine. I think if you were to give it a rating, it's like a B out of...
Yeah, it's one of the weaker Marvel movies, but it's still good.
Here's the thing about Iron Man 2. It tells a story.
Yes, it tells its story.
You don't have to like the story it tells, but it tells a beginning, middle, and end story about Iron Man feeling conflicted about being a hero, having all this pressure. They kind of do the demon in a bottle thing a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the end, he beats the villain, both of them. He kisses Pepper Potts, and he's resolved his arc of that movie. And yes, there is setup for the Avengers, but that setup actually also works within the main plot.
Because part of his character arc is coming to terms with like being the superhero figure and potentially becoming a member of this team.
Right, and Samuel L. Jackson coming in is to give him like the pep talk that he needs in that moment.
Yeah, so it's a great scene where he's like on the plastic donut in his like Iron Man suit with his helmet off. That scene's amazing.
It's a great scene. And so Iron Man 2, again, and I can totally understand if that's a movie you just don't like because it is problematic in some ways.
Yeah.
But we like it, and whether you like it or not, you can look at it and say, that's a 3-act movie with a story. This is not a 3-act movie, and it has no story. No. This movie has no story. It has a lot of stories. Yeah. It has no one coherent story.
And it has no point at ever where the stuff that they like suggest with the Justice League actually fits into the main plot. Like even at the very end when Bruce Wayne is talking about making the Justice League, that still is completely divorced from anything else that has happened in the movie. Like all of those sequences could be completely cut out and you would miss nothing about the movie. Like there's no thematic construction around any of that.
No, and if you cut like Black Widow out of Iron Man 2 wouldn't make sense anymore.
No, at all. It would be completely inexplicable.
Yes, so and we'll get to that. But anyway, one thing I want to make fun of with that Flash sequence, Flash looked fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And I know it was like...
He just looked like a CG man.
Yeah, I know.
It looked like a video game trailer.
Yeah, it's like... It was... And here's the other larger forest for the trees thing we have to talk about. I am fairly comic book savvy.
Yeah.
You are much more so.
Yes.
But, I host a fucking podcast where we talk about this every week.
Yes.
I don't know what the hell they were talking about with the Darkseid stuff. I don't know who Darkseid is. I don't know. I didn't know. What were you saying was in the dream sequence? The
parademons. They're like the flying monsters.
No idea what that is.
Yeah.
I only knew what Lex Luthor was ranting about at the end because I had heard someone saying that. I kind of spoiled the movie for myself before I saw it because I didn't give a shit. Yeah. And I'd heard that he mentioned Darkseid. What do you think the random just person going in off the street, the 90% of moviegoers, what did they make of this?
I have no idea. That's actually my biggest question coming out of the Flash thing in particular. The Lex Luthor thing's like weird, but it's like esoteric enough that it's like he could be talking about anything. It could be some metaphorical him or something. But the Flash thing in particular, like, is just a mindfuck because the dream sequence with the evil Superman, that at least fits into Batman's character arc of him being like stressed out about Superman maybe being evil. The Flash thing. Like, one, it's really hard to tell that's Flash. The only reason why I even really make the conclusion that it's Flash is because his hood was red, and Flash is the only DC character I can think of that reliably travels through time.
Yes.
So it's like, that's my entire... I could actually be wrong about that being the Flash, and I wouldn't be that surprised.
It is. It's Ezra Miller. It's
actually, so in case people like comic book nerds are going to, like, make comments, the Booster Gold also travels through time. But like he's obviously not involved in these movies.
Yes,
that was never going to be Booster Gold. It would be a way better movie if it was a Booster Gold.
But like I watch a Flash TV series every week, And I had the same question. Like, I think that's supposed to be Flash, but that looks stupid.
Yeah, but if you have no context at all for, like, any idea of what that is, like, this whole movie is so self-serious and dour that the idea of a character traveling through time is so patently absurd with the tone they set up through the rest of the movie that's like... That was, like, the biggest question I had in my mind in that sequence was like, what is everyone else in this movie theater that is not going to have the context I have for this moment? What are they going to think when they walk away? Like it looks like footage from like a different movie. Suddenly, like a guy like mistakenly spliced into this one, and like someone like put the wrong reel on or something.
Absolutely, and it's like again,
as if people put reels on show movies.
Again, to the Marvel thing though, that like. There are some of the later Marvel movies now, there are definitely scenes that would be confusing if you weren't keeping up. Yeah. But I still think anyone, if they just wanted to go see a fun movie, could go walk into, let's say, Thor the Dark World.
Yeah.
And they're just like, okay, Thor's this guy from Asgard. He is in love with Jane. They've got to beat the Dark Elf dude. And Loki's kind of a jerk, but maybe he's nice.
Yeah.
And it's funny. And you don't need to know about the Infinity Gems. You don't need to get the post-credit stinger. You will enjoy the movie either way, right?
Yeah, because the way that Marvel generally handles it is that if there's something that esoteric, like Thanos at the end of the Avengers, that's in the post-credit sequence, so that the general audience doesn't get it, it doesn't really matter.
Right. And so, but with this, no, that's not it at all. It's just all the post-credit sequences are in the movie. Yes, and there's like 20 minutes of them.
And they're basically shot as if they were post-credit sequences.
Exactly, yeah. But they're also the moments Zack Snyder feels most engaged as a filmmaker, which is the weirdest thing.
I mean, honestly, like, as insane and inexplicable it was, the Flash thing was another part in the movie where it's like, I was the most invested just because it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, there's no way that this is in this movie. What is happening? Like, this seems like whatever the Flash is doing, whatever adventure he's on, seems way too much fun to ever be in this boring, dour-ass film that I'm watching right now. Can I go through that time pillar and, like, follow, like, Flash along and, like, see whatever the fuck he's doing?
Well, let's just stay on this track and say the other scene like this is, so Bruce gets Lex Luthor's stuff decrypted, and we find out somehow Lex Luthor knows who everyone in the Justice League is. He's named all of them, and he's given each of them a logo somehow.
A very recognizable logo.
Yes. And
calling them all metahumans.
So Bruce which just makes me think of the Flash TV show where they use that term, and that show is so fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Bruce sends that to Diana Prince.
Yeah, Wonder Woman.
And
because she's in the files.
Right, she's in the files. And this is so weirdly paced, too. This is way later in the movie. Yeah. It's actually... Batman is at the fight scene. He's ready to fight, and we cut
away to Wonder Woman in a hotel room looking at her laptop, reading her email.
Yeah.
Which is not something you do in a movie in your climactic scene, cutting away to that.
It would be like if you start the Battle of New York in the Avengers, and then you cut away to... I don't even know who, the Thunderbolt Ross off having coffee or something.
Yeah.
Like just some character who's really not a part of the movie, but just I don't know. It would be so weird. So you do that, and then this is the most crass thing I think I have ever seen in a major studio movie.
It's like a 5-minute scene.
Maybe longer. Where she just clicks the Flash button, the Aquaman button, the Cyborg button, and watch what looks like viral marketing trailers for each of their movies, one by one. And I'm like, this scene will never end. These are all awful. What are they doing?
Yeah. Because I also love that it's like they get longer in succession. Yes. Like the more obscure the character, the longer it is, which makes sense, but it's really funny. Because the Flash one is like 5 seconds of like footage in some like Quickie Mart or something where the Flash, I guess you're supposed to assume that he's the Flash. It doesn't look like the Flash. But he's just like getting milk or something, and then a dude pulls a gun at the cash register, and then the Flash like and like zooms over and like knocks the dude over or whatever it happens, and that's the whole footage. Then Aquaman has probably the funniest one, where it's like some like James Cameron Marianas Trench footage of like some submersible thing or something like going into some wreckage, and then you just see some eyes in the like the blacky distance, and it comes up and you just see Jason Momoa playing presumably really gritty Aquaman, and he's just like looks into the camera for a little bit and looks like he's trying to be intimidating but can't really be intimidating
because he's resisting the urge to laugh.
Yeah, and I was really hoping it was going to just be that because it does eventually it cuts to him like hits the camera or something, and then it cuts to another camera with him like swimming away really quickly. So at least like Aquaman does something that looks like superhuman in that footage, but the majority of the footage is him just slowly swimming up to the camera. I'm like, is this supposed, like, this is your introduction to Aquaman? Like, it just looks like a dude who's, like, a deep-sea diver and, like, lost his, like, equipment or something. Like, how am I supposed to make the assumption that this is a superhuman?
And then the Cyborg one looks like an awful web series.
Yeah, the quality of it's really bad, where it's Cyborg's dad, Dr. Silas Stone, is making Cyborg, and there's some weird cube that's, like, fucking, like, it looks like a tetrahedron or something, and then it's just, like, Cyborg gets made. I don't know. Like, that one was incomprehensible to me.
You told me Cyborg's whole origin last week. I understood none of that.
Yeah, like, it's kind of like... And Cyborg isn't even a character I know that well. I'm constantly confused at DC's decisions since the New 52 to make Cyborg a founding member of the Justice League, because that's when that happened. Okay. And that's clearly coming through with this. Because he's such a minor, like, C or D list superhero in DC. The only minor, like, fame he has in the mildly mainstream audience is that he's one of the characters in the Teen Titans cartoon, which is pretty popular when I was a kid. So that was like, that's all I really know Cyborg from, because he doesn't even, I don't think he's ever really had his own comic book. He's only ever been a part of, like, the Teen Titans and other teams. So it's really strange to me that they're putting him in this movie. It's so weird because instead of, like, trying to reboot Green Lantern or something.
Or Martian Manhunter. Like, I have a very limited knowledge of DC outside of Batman and Superman, but if you were to ask me to name Justice League characters, I would go probably in order: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, and then I might get to Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
I would never get to Cyborg. I wouldn't even know who he is.
Because it's also, like, the most generic superhero could possibly... Like, he is a cyborg, and his name is Cyborg, and his superpowers are he is a cyborg. And that's it. That's the entire character, basically.
By the way, I want to cushion this for a second. Supergirl, the CBS show I'm always talking about, their most recent episode before Batman v Superman came out was an all-Martian Manhunter episode. It was great.
Awesome.
This coming one is where the Flash is going to cross over.
Awesome.
And in the trailer, they have a race. They know what they're doing. And you know what the title of the episode is? World's Finest. They're trying to make up for the movie.
That's really fucking
They're trying to make up for this.
That would have been great if they called it Supergirl v Flash.
Yes.
Dawn of this marathon.
They put a bunch of clips out, and I've watched them, and it's like it's all Supergirl and Flash being friends and having fun, and it looks so great, and it feels like they're trying to apologize for Batman.
What characters having fun? Who wants to see that, Jonathan? I want characters to look mildly constipated on screen for 2.5 hours.
Can I talk about that Flash clip for a second, too?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Because that's the other thing. Because I've come to really love the Flash as a character because of this TV show, as I think millions of Americans have. Clearly in the ratings and the acclaim for the show. And, you know, I know Ezra Miller is specifically playing, they're doing the Barry Allen Flash. They've said that. He is Barry Allen, he is the Flash. And I looked at that scene and I could just, even though it's like 5 seconds long, I could see the seeds of their gritty, miserable Flash.
Yeah.
And that is the number one character I never want to see done gritty and miserable. And he's got a fucking, like, goatee, and he's like, he looks like he's gonna rob that milk, and he's just like, you know, just kind of just hanging out, and it's gonna be, I'm so sad because my mother died, my father's in prison, and I'm gonna have to kill the Reverse Flash, and at the end I'm gonna snap his neck or something, and we're gonna see the Flash just kill a bunch of people, which that will really hurt. God.
Because that's like the Justice League cartoon episode that's the Justice Lords thing. The thing that actually happens in that alternate universe that makes everything go wrong is that the Flash dies in that universe, and that's what makes, like, everything gets fucked up, because the Flash was the member of the team that was the real heart, because he's the fun one, and he's the funny one, and he's the one who's, like, the real moral compass that, like, never strays. And it's like, I thought that characterization for the Flash was so good, and, like, that's never going to be what they're going to do in these movies. Like, they have no interest in a character that is actually a good person.
And again, if you're listening to this and you've gotten somehow this far into the podcast and you're baffled at us making fun of this serious, grimdark, clearly, you know, prestige movie, and you want to know, well, how can you make superheroes interesting without making them super grim and serious? Watch the Flash TV show. I don't think it's the best of these right now, but it's the one that tries the hardest to really integrate serious emotions, but it is still fun and funny primarily.
Yeah.
And again, there are some scenes that are absolute tearjerkers dealing with the Flash and some of the bad things in his life, but that never takes away from that he has friends, he has happiness, he has joy.
Yeah.
You can do both. For the fuck's sake. And if that doesn't convince you, watch every other Marvel movie.
Yeah, or, like, if you want to see how, like, a dark and gritty superhero drama can be done right, Daredevil Season 2 just came out on Netflix. That's a pretty fucking good version of it.
Yeah, just... Arrow, if you want a DC thing specifically.
Yeah.
Arrow is dark and grim. It's also light in some ways, and it is fun as a show. And it works. And you can cross over Arrow with the Flash, and it feels right. You could not do... I don't think you can cross over Flash with this Batman, you know?
Yeah, no.
Well, you can if you make Flash a mass murderer, too, which is what they're going to do.
Well, you'd have him have to at least kill Batman.
Right. Anyway.
There's no way Batman wins a fight against the Flash.
So anyway, Batman's mad at Superman, wants to kill him. Let's talk about Superman for a minute. Let's talk about this.
I love Superman. Superman's a great character. Let's talk about Superman.
In this movie, though... I mean, okay. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the Superman side of things, because this is where, like, I think as a just Batman movie, the first hour of this isn't the worst thing in the world.
Sure, yeah, it's the best, like, serious part of the movie.
Right? Is that okay to say?
Yeah, I like
Ben Affleck's good. There's some okay scenes. It works. It's mildly coherent. Whatever.
Yeah.
But on the Superman side, good God, is it a kick in the balls every time you cut back to the Superman adjacent stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they have no idea what they're doing.
No, they have no idea. Like, and I want to talk about the Daily Planet scenes, because those are laughable. Every one of them. And one of them is that Henry Cavill, and I do think this is a failure of his performance, and he had no time to develop it in Man of Steel, but you would hope he'd do something with it here. He does no modulation between Clark Kent and Superman.
No.
At all. Like, they're identical, and Clark Kent is just a dick in the newsroom. Like, he just keeps disobeying Perry White. Perry White is an awful newsman in this version.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you don't know why he's working as a journalist. None of it makes sense. The whole thing is just baffling.
Yeah, I mean, it's something where it's like Superman just comes across as a dick the entire movie. Like, because he never smiles. He's never happy. Like, Henry Cavill has the exact same expression on his face for the entire movie, other than when he's trying to make out with Lois Lane in the bathtub is the one time he seems mildly happy, which is understandable. Outside of that one scene, he's like just constantly, like I said earlier, he looks mildly constipated. It's just like, It looks like he's like thinking about like, oh man, I forgot to write that sports article. I'll have to do that later.
But it's like Superman really has no arc in this part of the movie.
No.
Like, there's a lot of people talking about Superman, but Superman himself, he has no goals, he has no motivations. He's just doing a circling pattern waiting to fight Batman.
Yeah. And he kind of helps a couple of people in a couple of montages a little bit in the movie. Like, that's the most of what he does.
Although,
a little bit.
There's people on the roofs, you never see him actually come down and rescue them.
That's a good point.
Point that out.
Yeah,
he could just leave them there. He's like, Lois said we could Netflix and chill tonight. I'm going to go home.
Yeah, it's like, I could, but you know what? You look kind of heavy. Like, I just don't want to carry. That's just going to take, like, 2 seconds maybe for me to save you.
The kid's crying. I don't like crying kids.
Yeah.
So, but then his only, like, arc, quote unquote, in this part is that he decides as a journalist to take on Batman for no reason. It comes out of nowhere. Yeah. It's completely half-hearted.
And it's completely underbaked and non-developed in the actual movie. Yeah.
And then there's a couple of scenes where he talks to Martha Kent and to Lois Lane about him being conflicted, and they're complete bullshit. And then the whole time he's refusing to go in front of the Senate, which, if there's one thing I know about Superman, it's that he will go talk to the American government.
Yeah, he will open up a dialogue with whoever wants to talk to him. Like, he's Superman.
He does that in, like, every other Superman movie.
Yeah.
I think, isn't that right? In 1, 2, 3, 4, and Returns, he does that in every one of them.
Basically, yeah. Because that's one of the things about Superman that, people make fun of the whole fucking Clark Kent thing with the glasses. But one of the things I love about Superman is that he doesn't have a mask. It's like, he is who he is. Like, he is not hiding behind anything, and that's part of that is him. He will go and he will talk to people. Like, if they want to talk to him, if the government's like, hey, Superman, like, what the fuck? He'll show up and be like, yo, dog, this is what's up.
Yeah. And so
I save those people.
He keeps putting off going to the Senate. He keeps going off. And then finally he goes there. He looks super just, as you say, constipated, angry.
He's mildly annoyed is like the expression throughout the entire movie. Never like a serious expression on his face.
He's like, okay, let's get this over with. I'm going to go to the Senate and talk to these people. Fucking good people. And he goes
Human beings.
And he goes there. And then Lex Luthor detonates a bomb, and he doesn't actually have to talk. So they sidestep the entire issue of having an actual moral conversation.
Yep, they blow up City Hall. An American senator gets killed. At least one, probably several are actually there. Lex Luthor kills his own assistant, which seems like particularly cold-blooded in a way that, like, I didn't really understand like that, because that just kind of happens. He sends his like assistant in there, and she gets blown up too. I really didn't understand why that happened, and probably like 50 something people die, and many of them, like I said, like senators, very important people, like very public figures. And Superman just sort of stands there with the exact same expression he had walking in.
Yeah,
and it's like we're supposed to be like, oh, he's feeling so much right now. It looks like he's thinking about like, oh man, Perry's going to get on my ass when I get back to the Daily Planet about this thing. I'm going to have to write an article about this piece of shit too. Come on.
I forgot who said it on Twitter, but someone pointed out he could have tried to save some of the burning bodies. Like, someone could be alive in there.
Yeah.
And Superman could easily save them. But no, he's just going to stand there and be like, it was cold outside. This is kind of cozy in this burning building.
Yeah, it feels a little bit warm. And then later he has that whole scene with Lois Lane where he's like, I didn't see it, Lois. And maybe I didn't see it because I wasn't looking for it. And it's like the whole time I'm like, this just doesn't ever feel like Superman.
No.
Like, this feels exactly like, let me go open up my copy of Watchmen and find one of a dozen scenes of Dr. Manhattan talking to Silk Spectre about how detached he's become from humanity and how, like, he, like, isn't saving people because he doesn't even understand why anymore. That's not a Superman thing to do, especially not a Superman that's only been Superman for fucking 18 months. It's not like he's been around the block and has been doing this for decades and is, like, feeling the pressure that way. If he was an old Superman, I could kind of understand that. It's like, you're, like, 23 years old or something, dude. Like, get the fuck over it.
No, remember, he's supposed to be 35 in this universe, and he took that long to lift a finger and help humanity.
Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot. This isn't Superman.
No, Henry Cavill is playing his age. He's like 34 or 35.
Okay,
That's... Anyway. By the way, speaking of, like, how long people have been heroes, what's your read on Batman's history in this? Because I thought they were doing the Dark Knight Returns thing from the trailers, but I don't think they are. Like, I think he's just been Batman the whole time. But
he's definitely been Batman for the whole time,
But for some reason, no one in Metropolis ever heard about him before now.
Even though Gotham is just, like, down the street, basically.
And even though every one of his major villains has come and gone. Like, he's had the Joker, he's clearly had all the other
Robin
ones.
has presumably been killed because he's
gone on to Jason Todd, and Jason Todd's dead. Dick Grayson is probably off somewhere. I know they're casting Nightwing for Justice League, so they're trying.
He's off in Bloodhaven, which is supposed to be Gotham's sister city, but in this universe is on the other coast because they have no idea how the geography is supposed to work.
So was that confusing to you too?
Yeah, like it is like something where I'm guessing Bruce Wayne. It feels like they want him to be like in his 40s or something, but I think he's probably supposed to be around the same age as Superman. But, like, it doesn't... Yeah, the timeline stuff doesn't really make sense, especially when you point out that Superman is, like, 30-something years old. That means that Batman has been Batman for most of Superman's life.
Yeah.
And that also just, like, makes it doubly weird how Superman has never tried to... Or Clark Kent never tried to be Superman before if, like, there was someone else doing the vigilante hero thing.
Right. It is so bizarre. Ben Affleck is in his 40s, but he looks younger, good-looking dude.
Yeah.
And the way they have the scenes of him working out, he's so fit. He's not Frank Miller's old Dark Knight.
No,
he's a young, fit man. Whether he's in his 30s or 40s, that's not what's going on here. So how long could he possibly have been Batman? Like, it's all confusing.
I think they said there was a line that said that he was at least Batman for 20 years. I think I picked
Yes, and there's a line... One of the only good lines Batman has, which is, I'm older now than my father ever was, which doesn't make sense because Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in his 50s.
Yeah, which makes it sound like, that Thomas Wayne had Bruce when he was really young. Yeah.
Also, I want to say this. The casting, I know we're going back to the first scene, the casting of Bruce's parents, I don't know if you saw who they were. They're Jeffrey Dean Morgan
who was the comedian in Watchmen.
And Lauren Cohen. Lauren Cohen is like 30 years old. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in his late 50s. That's just, I don't know. She looked like she should be like Bruce's older sister.
Yeah.
They did not look like a couple. That was weird. Not that it matters all that much, but it was weird.
Yeah. Also, casting the dude who you cast as the comedian to be Bruce Wayne's father is that's a little, again, Zack Snyder had no idea what the Watchmen was fucking about.
No. All right, so Sean, we hit Superman. Not a lot to talk about there.
Yeah.
We hit Batman. Now let's talk about the third pillar in the trifecta of shit that is this movie, Lex, or as we maybe should call him, Alexander Luthor.
Or as we maybe should call him, evil Mark Zuckerberg.
Except, people have been saying that. I feel bad for Jesse Eisenberg. Clearly he was directed to do this.
No actor does that, like, of their own volition.
I've never seen him play this broad. I feel like I've seen most of his movies. the Social Network, he is incredibly nuanced and subtle in that.
Yeah.
Like, this is... I don't know what anyone was thinking. I feel bad for Jesse Eisenberg the whole time because he clearly, it's a performance with no direction. I mean, no one is either reining him in or pushing him out because it modulates moment to moment.
Yeah, it feels like he has no idea what the tone of the movie's supposed to be. Like, every time he's on screen, it looks like he was like digitally added into the footage from a different movie.
So Sean, I think you've got a better rant on this than I do. So Lex Luthor, go.
Okay, yeah, so, I mean, we've talked about this. This has been like a weird running theme on the podcast for a long time about the modern state of villains in the post-Joker from the Dark Knight world, of where the Joker from the Dark Knight is one of the best movie villains of all time, like, hands down. He's amazing. And then everyone saw that and was like, that's amazing, let's do that. And nobody understood anything about what made that performance compelling. Because the number one thing a villain needs to be, especially in a comic book type of kind of movie, is menacing. You want to be intimidated by the villain. He's supposed to feel dangerous. He's supposed to feel like he is doing the wrong thing and he is threatening you. And you're supposed to feel that pressure as a member of the audience. That is like the most fundamental basic component of what a villain is. Correct, Jonathan?
Yes.
Yeah. So what has happened is that, like, the starkest example that we've brought up a billion times is Moriarty from the Sherlock show, which is taking that idea of like the wacky, zany kind of villain and just like ratcheting that up to the extreme where he feels like a cartoon character and completely bleaching out any of the like legitimate menace that the Joker had for the Dark Knight, because he's one of the most frightening movie villains of all time as well. Not just like the most compelling, but there are some of those scenes like in the Dark Knight, the sort of the found footage section with the Joker that are like when you saw that in the theater for the first time on like opening night, you could have heard a pin drop in that theater. Like, nobody made a sound because it was fucking terrifying. None of these villains could ever do anything that is even 1/1 billionth of that performance in that moment, you know, because they all go for this Looney Tunes Daffy Duck bullshit performance, and Jesse Eisenberg somehow is the worst of them all in this movie. It is so ridiculously bad from minute fucking one. He is the most obnoxious character you could possibly create. He is bouncing off the goddamn walls with more verbal and like physical tics than any quirky character could ever possibly survive, and he's just constantly saying stupid fucking like hot topic 13-year-old angsty bullshit about like God and how like God is not a man and man should defeat God and my dad was mean to me and I am like the richest person on the planet and blah 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 blah. And like at no point are you ever intimidated by him. At no point does he ever feel threatening. The entire movie, every time he's on screen, every time you hear his voice, you just want every character in the shot to turn around and just punch him in the face repeatedly, and that should be the end of the scene. It is fucking insane. I cannot describe how much I hate his performance. And it is just like all the time you will just have like the speech at Lex Luthor's party and he starts talking about like Prometheus and all this bullshit. He's like, and then Prometheus, he got the fire from Zeus and he came down to give it to man, but Zeus didn't like that. So he made a bolt of thunder and he struck down Prometheus, and that doesn't seem very fair now, does it? And it's like, he is so insanely obnoxious, but never actually feels insane. Like when people call him psychotic and he does this whole stupid thing, he's like, psychotic is just a 3-letter or 3-syllable word for any thought too big for normal minds. Like he just sounds like he is like some douchebag 15-year-old piece of shit who like works the cash register at Hot Topic and that like... and is like incredibly privileged, has never like experienced anything in their life, and then like is just like thinks they know everything but actually knows nothing. And if that was the performance they were trying to go for, it's amazing, but nothing about how they use him in the movie makes it feel like that, because he's like orchestrates this master plan for no like really particular reason. He has no motivation to do anything in the movie whatsoever. Like, and like whatever minor motivation you might try to glean from it jumps so wildly from I hate Superman to I hate heroes to I hate God to I hate my dad. That's like there's no real connective tissue to any of his motivations. And by the end, like he has somehow managed to orchestrate a scenario where Superman and Batman fight each other, and he knows both of their secret identities, and nothing is ever like established to understand how he knows who Batman and Superman actually are to be able to manipulate them. Why, if you have that kind of like privileged information, you would come up with this ridiculous plan to try to defeat, like, get them to fight each other, and why you would get them to fight each other if your whole plan the entire time was just to make General Zod into a giant monster to fight them. Like, nothing he does in the movie makes any sense. Nothing he does in the movie has any motive. And the entire time he's on screen, you just want to rip the screen apart because he's so annoying. That's what Jesse Eisenberg is in this movie.
And yet, I want to say this. There were no moments I enjoyed more in this movie than Lex Luthor because I laughed so fucking hard. That was not intentional on their part. I don't think Jesse Eisenberg is supposed to be funny. Yeah. I think they want him to be scary. They're wrong. And yet, it was all, none of it was me trying to laugh. But he walks in and he's like, Senator, hello! Yeah. And he's like, and I think, is that a woman? And then it'll turn the camera. It's like, no, it's Jesse Eisenberg, like he's in puberty with his voice breaking. Yeah. And I would just I would break out laughing, like it's that involuntary, like, you know, like, and then it becomes bigger and bigger. Yeah. And the people around me were annoyed sometimes when I would do that. But it's like, I can't help it. He's hilarious. Not in a good way, but like, I was laughing because it's like, this is so bad. This is honestly, so bad.
For me, like, it was so bad that I couldn't even laugh at it. Like, okay. I wanted to bash my fucking brains out every time he was on screen because it was so annoying.
I get both reactions, but do you know what I mean? Like,
I can see why you would find it, like, outrageously funny.
But it's also because it's like, those are the only moments of levity in the entire film. It's all so dark, and like, to Jesse Eisenberg's credit, he's the only one giving any kind of signs of life with his character.
It seems like he's having a really good time in this movie. Yeah. I will give him that much. But like, he's enjoying himself.
And I have seen some people seriously praise him for that, and I don't necessarily disagree, because if you are that annoyed by all the grimdark bullshit in the movie, I can see you looking at Jesse Eisenberg and saying, that guy is trying to have fun in a funless movie.
Yeah.
And now, I don't think it works,
no.
But I do... It's all a mess. But I want to read a little... I collected a bunch of different, like, quotes and stuff, because a movie this bad brought out the best in a lot of critics.
Yeah, definitely. I've had some fun reading reviews.
And Devin Faraci from Birth Movies Death, he, works with the Alamo and some of their publications. Yeah. He wrote a review that is great and you should read. And there's just these 2 paragraphs on Lex Luthor that I found so funny. I just want to read a little bit about this. He writes, If Superman has no goals, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor has plenty of them, none of which make any sense. Luthor's machinations in the film are essentially nonsense. One of his dastardly plans involves a jar of piss, and they are largely unmotivated. There's a scene where Luthor sets up a suicide bombing that has no impact on the story, and to me that scene exemplifies the storytelling problems with the entire film. Lots of scenes that are cool in the moment, but have no place in the larger tale. Eisenberg is next-level terrible as Luthor. He's a twitchy lunatic pretty much from the start, and if there are any events in the story that lead to him escalating his plot to the point of creating an unstoppable monster, I missed them. Eisenberg delivers every line like he thinks he's the villains on the 1966 Batman show were too nuanced. His face is a collection of ticks, and his eyes burn with the power of 1,000 ham actors. Not only is his performance unmodulated, he's generally irritating at all times. While I don't understand why Lex Luthor wants to unleash an unstoppable monster on the world, I do fully understand why Batman wants to fucking hit him.
Yeah. That was the most disappointing part of the whole movie, that Batman didn't just beat the shit. Like, of all the people that Batman could have brutalized and murdered in the movie, the only one I would have been totally 100% fine with and I would have given the movie a fucking standing ovation if the end of that movie was, instead of him just threatening Lex Luthor and punching the wall, if it was a prolonged 10-minute torture sequence where he just brutally fucking murdered Lex Luthor and walked out of the prison like nothing happened, and walked out of the prison to uproarious applause of every other character in the movie is standing there just applauding him. It's like, good job, Batman. Thank you, Batman.
And yet, how sad is it that we've created a movie where that's what we want ultimately out of the film, is for Batman to brutally murder Lex Luthor and us to applaud it.
Yes.
That's what they've created.
That is how annoying their villain is.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What else to say about it? The other thing is just, it's like, I imagined that there is The 30 minutes in the extended cut is just every time right before Lex Luthor comes on scene, it's him in the bathroom snorting coke.
Yeah.
That's what he snorts some coke and then walks on set. That's every scene in the movie. He seems coked out of his mind.
Yeah, it's him doing like lines of coke on like a bathroom stall and then like looking in the mirror like, they like me. They must like me. Everyone likes me. I'm just such a fun, likable guy. They don't hate me. I'm just going to go out there and I'm just going to have some fun because everyone thinks that I'm so cool. Yeah.
It's so funny because there were all those lines we've made fun of in the trailers, like the red capes are coming.
The
oldest lie in America, all that. They make even less sense in context.
The oldest lie in America. That fucking line, because there's something like, it's in the trailer, but you don't think about it. But then in the movie, they do that where it's like, he has this scene with Holly Hunter, like early on, where it sets up the jar of piss, which is fucking stupid. And he also, like, he tries to say, Senator, do you know what the oldest lie in America is? And he gets cut off, and he doesn't get to finish it. So then it goes, like, later in the movie, you have, like, the Senate hearing thing where eventually that blows up, and he says to the senator again, it's like, do you know what the oldest lie in America is? That power is innocent. And when you set it up like that, I now have to actually think about what that line says. And it says fucking nothing. What the fuck does that mean? What does that have to do with America?
Also,
who says, like, forget America. Who says that power is innocent? Who has ever said that in the history of mankind? Are you like, and that's the kind of shit that I'm talking about where it's like, it's not even just the performance, it's the writing that makes him sound like a 15-year-old piece of shit barista at Starbucks who should fucking drown themselves in the coffee mix, you know? Like, dude, like, I fucking get it, man. Like, I knew a couple of philosophy majors in college. Like, you're not that smart. Like, get the fuck over it. Shut the fuck up. What do you mean the oldest lie in America is power is innocence? Go fuck yourself. Go piss in a jar and drink it, you piece of human waste.
The funniest thing is, I forget which review this was. There's so many good ones. If you want to have a fun evening, just read different reviews of Batman v Superman.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing since I watched the movie.
There's so many good ones. But anyway, one of them pointed out that, like, there's an easy way to make that line make sense with Luthor's motivations, as if he said, you know what the oldest line in America is, Senator? That all men are created equal.
Yeah, okay.
That would have worked. But
that's a good line.
That's the actual oldest lie in America. Yeah. But he says something that I've never heard a human being in history or in the modern times say.
It's definitely not specifically in America.
Yeah, no one's ever said that. And then the whole red capes are coming thing. Less context there than in the actual trailers.
Yeah. Like he creates some like whole broad metaphor about like with the Paul Revere myth in America with
sense.
Like Superman, like aliens invading Earth. I guess it's just
okay.
Makes no sense.
The funniest Lex Luthor scene though is there's this big dramatic intercut montage where he is asking the U.S. government for access to Zod's body and the crashed Kryptonian ship, and so it's cutting between him getting access to the ship and getting Zod's body, where he does that annoying thing in the trailers where he's like, come here. He's doing the hand signal.
Yeah, stop.
But what that's all intercut with is him talking to the government agent while he's unwrapping a Jolly Rancher. Yeah. It's a parody of a parody of a parody at that point. And then he like...
It looks like it's a scene from like Grand Theft Auto 5 when you go to that shitty like IT company.
Yes, it's exactly what that is. And then he puts the Jolly Rancher in the FBI dude's mouth. Yeah. To cap the scene off, and that's what's supposed to make him terrifying, is he unwrapped a Jolly Rancher. Give me a fucking break. It's so funny in a bad way.
And I just made a connection, because he's, with that like Jolly Rancher scene, it's not just he has like that one Jolly Rancher that he's unwrapping, he's got like this a jar of Jolly Ranchers that presumably he has another scene later in the movie where he makes use of what might be that very same jar.
Exactly. It's so stupid. I mean, okay, the bombing of the Senate.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to make Batman think Superman did that, right?
Yeah, because there's this whole really convoluted subplot about the guy, the amputee dude from the beginning that was a Wayne employee that like Lex Luthor somehow got access to his mail that like Bruce Wayne was sending him checks, and then Lex Luthor sent back those checks with writing on it things like you're like a pussy Bruce or whatever. He doesn't actually say that one, but it's stuff to that effect. It's like you're not a real man, Bruce Wayne kind of thing. And
poking at his masculinity.
Yeah, poking at his masculinity. And Lex Luthor does that and also gets that guy a cool wheelchair and convinces him to then be a suicide bomber in that Senate committee, to make people blame Superman, even though nobody thinks Superman did it. Everyone knows that, like, because the next shot after it blows up is like a news thing of the people saying, like, and we suspect that the bomber was this guy. It was the guy it was. It's like nothing about that makes sense of like how any of that's supposed to be Superman's fault from anyone's perspective. Like, I don't understand why Batman would ever be like, okay, now this is the thing that pushes me over the edge to then go after Superman.
But that's the other question I have, though, because it's all nonverbal. Are we supposed to believe in the grammar of the film that is what pushes Batman over the edge?
It has to be, right? Because that's the last thing that happens, and then Batman starts doing his fucking training montage and getting the kryptonite.
I agree, but it makes no sense.
No, it doesn't, but nothing in this movie fucking makes sense. Like, Lex Luthor pisses in a fucking jar and then puts it in Senator Holly Hunter's, like, desk, where she, like, that phases her so much to see that she can't even make her fucking speech for, like, 5 minutes that dragged on.
Well, Sean, women are frail and not fit for politics, as this movie tries to tell us.
Obviously, and, like, a jar of piss is the most terrifying thing you could ever give to anybody ever.
Poor Holly Hunter. I like Holly Hunter. She's a good actress.
Yeah, no, she is. She's actually, like, one of the best performances in this movie, legitimately. She's, I actually really like her part in that scene with Lex Luthor where, like, the jar of piss thing first comes up, where she, like, puts him down. Because that was, like, the first time we were like, fuck yeah! Like, take it to this piece of shit. Like, tell him off, because he's just ranting off nonsense for the whole movie. But then, like, unfortunately, somehow, like, that comes back to bite her in the ass, and then she gets blown up along with a bunch of other people. And then that never comes up again.
No.
And I feel like, that's the assassination of an American senator. Like,
a lot of American senators, it's a Senate hearing.
Exactly. Like, that's a really, really significant event. That is not something that would just, like, get passed over really quickly, but it just happens and the movie basically pretends like it didn't happen afterwards.
Right. Even though it's Batman's primary motivation for the fight, somehow, even though Bruce Wayne is established to be intelligent, whatever. And again, I really do think and it's mostly just in Ben Affleck's performance, and I'm grasping at straws reading into things, but I kind of like the idea of, you could not as far as they push it with Batman branding people, but the idea of a Batman who probably had taken one punch too many in his career. Then the Superman thing happened, and he's just at a point where he has no hope. His humanity is kind of extinguished. And I think you could tell a great Batman story with that. Where he and Superman become friends, and they find what they are missing in the other. It's the ultimate bromance thing.
Yeah, it's the world's finest.
And I think you could even build that off the end of Man of Steel if you don't draw as much attention to that. But a Superman who feels like he didn't do the right thing. He's trying to make up for it. He wants to be the best hero he can be. Batman doesn't trust him, and they learn something from one another. Yeah. You could make a really good Batman and Superman movie, not a The Superman. The versus thing pisses me off still.
Yeah.
But,
No, I'm 100% with you. That idea can work, but they fumble that idea along the way every single step.
Like, no, they absolutely do.
It's ridiculous.
There are moments, though. Yeah, there are moments, though, like when Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne is watching the bombing while looking at the checks. All of that narrative stuff is stupid, and yet Ben Affleck, I think, almost sells it, because he's doing, I think, such good silent acting, and it makes me so sad, because it's like we finally might have gotten a great live-action Batman.
But it's impossible to tell.
It's impossible to tell.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, though? It's like, you want to have that hope.
Yes, no, I do get what you mean, because there is, like, something... But they do, like, since they do no character development work whatsoever, it's so hard to get a sense of, like, is that what this Batman is? Like, there is a line that Alfred says very early on in the movie that implies that Batman is getting more extreme recently.
Yeah.
But it's impossible for the audience to feel that change because we don't know who this Batman is. This Batman has not been established before. He's clearly very different from every other Batman that I've basically seen. The only similarities he has is to Dark Knight Returns, and even then, he's way more extreme in this movie than he is in that graphic novel. This is way more all-star Batman and Robin than it is Dark Knight Returns, and that's the storyline where Batman chains Robin into the Batcave and makes him eat on rats, and he kidnaps fucking Dick Grayson, 10 years old, from, like, the site where his parents were fucking murdered. Like, that's the kind of Batman this feels like is leading to.
I really wish they had gotten Ben Affleck to say, "What are you, retarded? I'm the goddamn Batman."
Yeah, that should have been, like, the big line at the end of the Batman-Superman fight.
All right, so Lex Luthor's stupid, Superman's boring, Batman's disturbing.
Yeah.
I want to talk briefly about that scene where Batman steals the kryptonite. It's a really bad, like, generic action scene with
the Batmobile?
Where the Batmobile just looks like a reject of the Tumbler design from the Chris Nolan movies.
And where you, the first time you realize, oh, this Batman, like, really is just straight up killing people because he basically kills 2 cars full of people at the very beginning of the scene.
And there's one point where, and the editing betrays this, but it is edited to look like he drives through this truck and decapitates someone.
Yeah, I saw that, and then it cuts back like a couple of shots later, and you see that they're still alive.
There's no way.
Yeah, no, like they very clearly were killed in that. Yeah. Like it was that cut was fucking ridiculous. I spotted that too.
That was ludicrous.
That's also where like you see the Batmobile has like 2 fucking Gatling guns that pop out, and he's just shooting at these cars, not to disable them, but to very clearly kill them.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is not the fucking Arkham Knight. These are not drones tanks he's fighting against. Right. They are cars full of people.
And even when he's fighting the tanks in Arkham Knight, they're rubber bullets.
Yeah.
So, no, it's ludicrous. And then the scene ends with Superman comes and stops the Batmobile.
Just out of nowhere. Like, there's, again, another thing where it feels like there's probably another shot somewhere in that movie that, like, sets that up. But it's so disconnected from it that it's like all of a sudden Superman is just like Batman turns the corner and Superman's just standing there. This is the first time they meet. It's the first time of the 2 times they say anything to each other in the entire movie. Like Batman and Superman barely are in the movie together at all, which is another huge problem because this sequence comes way late in the movie. Like this is at the top of the 3rd act, if even that. And yeah, so then Batman crashes, Superman rips off the Batmobile like doors, and then I forget what Superman basically says like don't use turn out the bat signal, like don't come here anymore, stop it. And then he's like about to leave, and then Batman is like, I have a question for you. Do you bleed? And then Superman just looks at him like nerd, and then he flies off.
No, it's an awful scene.
Because it's one of those where, like, Superman is basically just physically threatening Batman in that sequence. Like, again, of all the things that's like, that is the most non-Superman thing he could have done other than just straight up kill Batman there. And honestly, if he had just fucking punched through Batman's head in that scene, I would have probably enjoyed the movie more in a very sadistic way.
I mean, it's another possible moment of redemption, though, because how you could have that scene play out is Superman goes, and this was what would happen in the comics or a cartoon or anything, he would say, why are you so angry, Batman?
Yeah.
What can I do to, I feel like you're going a little too far. What's going on? Your intentions are probably good. What do we need to do? And it's like, you killed a lot. I'm like, I'm sorry, man. It was my first day. I had a bad day. Let's hash this out. Yeah. That's how it would actually go.
Yeah.
But no, it's, fuck you, stop being Batman. And then Batman's like, do you bleed? You will. And it's so dumb.
Yeah.
There's some 13-year-old fascist in the audience getting a boner.
I mean, that is, like, the thing about this movie is that it is, like, people try to, it's more mature because it's darker, it's more adult. Like, this is the most juvenile piece of shit superhero movie you could possibly watch. This movie was made for the target audience of 13 to 15-year-old boys, and that's it. It's a very narrow slice, but it is what they are aiming for.
And it's disgusting when you think about that, because this is the exact wrong thing teenage boys should be learning. Exactly. This is how we get shit like rape culture. I'm sorry,
It's so ridiculously testosterone fueled. It is so made for that stupid fucking crowd of people that think that Superman is so lame and Batman's so cool because Batman doesn't have superpowers, man. Like, he's just a guy. Like, Batman's just a guy and he's wreaking out justice. Like, he doesn't need any superpowers. It's like, fuck off, you pieces of shit. Batman has as many superpowers as Superman has, because guess the fuck what? They are both fucking fictional characters. None of them are real. None of them are real people. No character you've ever seen in a movie, no character you've ever read in a book, read in a comic book, like anything. No character represented in any form of media whatsoever is ever a real person. They can try to appeal to a real person, and guess who's not a very realistic person? A guy who is infinitely wealthy, infinitely privileged, because that's the other thing that people never like, those people who love Batman's like, he's just a guy who also happens to have more money than anyone else on the entire planet, and for some reason doesn't use that immense, tremendous wealth to actually try to, like, solve crime at, like, a socioeconomic level. He just goes out and he beats people the fuck up because he's got a mad boner for fucking punching people in the face. Because that's what this Batman is. But he does have superpowers. He has all the money in the world. He has all the technology in the world that is super technology that cannot actually exist. He is a tactical genius. He is a martial arts master. He is a genetic Ubermensch. He is a Superman. Like, shut the fuck up if you think Batman is just a normal guy and that's what makes him cool. He is genetically engineered to make you think that he is cool. That is what Batman is. That is why this kind of Batman is so fucking lame and impossible to get into, because he just feels like he's supposed to appeal to the juvenile piece of shit that's in all of us. And that's not the Batman that I'm interested in. And that's not what Superman has ever appealed to or even can really appeal to. And that's why Superman is a better character. Thank you.
Okay. Let's just go right into it. We need to talk about the fascist overtones in this movie.
Yeah, okay. Let's do that.
Again, I will point you to another review. If you want to find this out, maybe I'll link it in the description. You can find it, though. It's Walter Chaw, C-H-A-W. He is actually the manager of our Alamo Draft House here in Denver.
Oh, cool.
He's a cool guy. He writes also, and for Film Freak Central, wrote a review of Batman v Superman. This is my favorite one I've read. It's very sad and serious because he looks at the movie through the lens of, like, modern America and the problems we have now, and things like Trumpism that is on the rise. And I think this movie fits into that narrative very well, unfortunately.
Yes, it does.
But I want to go on a more specific track, which is how this movie works in the historical grammar of fascism. And you hear me say that word and you might think it's just a silly movie. No, this really is something that needs to be talked about with this movie.
I agree.
Let's do a little history lesson, your film history. Fascism on film was really established in the Third Reich, the Nazis, Nazi Germany, by the filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl, who is, even if you have not heard her name, one of the most influential filmmakers ever, because she made Triumph of the Will, which is the 3-hour documentary, quote-unquote, about Hitler that was used as a propaganda film in Nazi Germany. It was about the... I forget what the name of the conference was, but it's the big history. It's all that
Nuremberg conference.
Nuremberg conference, yeah. Whenever you see footage of Hitler, giving the speeches and all the troops on the march, you're probably seeing footage from Triumph of the Will.
Yeah.
She also made a lesser-known, but no less important film in 1938, also under the Third Reich, called Olympia, and this was about the Olympics that were hosted in Nazi Germany that year. Yeah. Or a few years earlier. I think it took her a couple of years to edit it. And Olympia has all these shots. It's where you honestly get the grammar of the uber-masculine male, the masculine fascist body.
Yeah.
Which is an idea, which is that fascism obviously is very patriarchal. It is very power-hungry. It is about, powerful masculine figures as the utmost thing to aspire to.
Yeah.
And so Olympia has all these famous shots that you will see in a million things now of the low angle, high on the male body, shirt off, glistening in the sun, lit from behind, doing, feats of strength, those sorts
of... I don't know, hitting a tire with a sledgehammer, Jonathan.
Yes. And whenever a filmmaker quotes that, you have to stop and think about it. Because they are quoting Nazi Germany.
Yes.
And they are quoting fascism. And fascism...
And proper fascism.
Proper fascism.
Real fucking fascism.
Real fascism. The idea of authoritarianism, power above all else, masculinity, toxic masculinity as the thing to aspire to.
Might makes right to the extreme.
Yes, absolutely. And that is what Batman in this movie represents.
Absolutely.
Much more so even than in the Frank Miller comics. Or at least the early ones.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns definitely has those undertones, but these are overtones. And, there are other things going on in that graphic novel that you have to look at, the historical context, too, of when Frank Miller was writing this and what things he was talking about. And again, I don't ideologically agree with that comic in a lot of ways, but in the time, it's more understandable than this is.
Yeah, it's culturally important in the 80s, particularly for the comic book community.
Yeah. So, Zack Snyder... In that scene when Batman is getting ready for the fight, my jaw just dropped because it was horrific. He's hitting a fucking tire with a hammer.
Yeah.
He's doing those pull-ups. And
he is doing, all the things that if you're actually trying to get in shape, you should, do not take lessons from what this Batman is doing, because that is a terrible way to work out.
And I'm not saying that every time you see a dude with his shirt off working out, that's fascist grammar. Like, you see, Thor with his shirt off in the Marvel movies, but he's not shot like this. This is not something they usually do. And it goes in tandem with the way the movie treats its female characters. In that, and we'll get to that later, I guess. I'll just talk about this now. But you have all of that, and once you're done with those are, they are direct quotes of the Leni Riefenstahl stuff. And Zack Snyder has always had this in his filmography. It is by far the most problematic thing about him as a filmmaker. 300 is an ode to it.
Yeah.
But at least 300 contextually doesn't feel like it is pro-fascism.
Yeah, it's like it's a big testosterone-fueled action movie about the conflict between a small group against a larger group. That can be read in a bunch of different ways.
Right, and I still think Zack Snyder is using cinematic grammar in ways he does not fully understand in all his movies. Yeah, but then in Watchmen...
the same way that he doesn't really understand what Watchmen's about.
Well, and Watchmen is even more problematic, the way he specifically does some of the stuff with... what's the villain's name? Ozymandias.
Ozymandias.
And some of the stuff he does with that, and the comedian, and Rorschach, and that's problematic, because Rorschach is glorified in that movie, where he is... I would say villainized in the novel. You're not supposed to...
he's made very complex in the novel. He's supposed to be horrific, but you're meant to sympathize with him.
Right. You understand the conditions that made Rorschach, but you also understand the world is probably better off without him.
Yeah.
Whereas when Rorschach is killed, there's a giant no in the movie.
Yeah, and then Night Owl beats the shit out of Ozymandias.
Right. Because that's what men do.
Exactly.
And then the worst and most disgusting movie Zack Snyder has made is Sucker Punch, and I still would say over Batman v Superman, because that is it is purely about the only way women can empower themselves is through heightening their own sexuality. That is the entire message and theme of that movie. And if you don't believe me, remember that entire movie is women they're in an asylum creating a dream sequence for themselves in which they live in a brothel.
Right.
And they are prostitutes. That's what that movie is
about. That is the most Frank Miller thing I've ever heard in my whole life.
Yes. No, I think that movie, unfortunately, is the Rosetta Stone to Zack Snyder's entire filmography. Because I think that's his only original story he's written.
Yeah, and that's also the movie where, after that came out, I remember, a lot of people hoping, hopefully that's the outlier in his filmography. That's the experiment that went wrong.
Yeah, and clearly it isn't. That's what he believes. And so now we get to Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
And it's back in full force. He honestly took his leg off the fascism a little bit in Man of Steel. You don't get as much of that. Yeah. It's back in full force here, and so you have that whole training sequence, and then where it gets really disgusting is the fight, the titular match.
Yeah.
And it is all framed through Batman saying, "I'm going to teach you how to be a man."
Yeah.
And those lines. And...
because he has multiple lines in that whole sequence where it's you're not a hero, you're not even a man.
Yep.
Because a man bleeds.
Exactly that, and with all the violence for the sake of violence, it is 100% violence porn.
Yeah.
And it is basically saying, as you said earlier, that if you have a symbol of hope and optimism, they deserve to be beaten to a pulp because they are not enough of a man.
Yeah. And that Superman is, as a character, typically he is hopeful, he is optimistic, he is inspiring, and he is meant to be idealistic and idealized, and Batman's response to that is to crush it, because crushing it proves his real power and that he is more powerful, and proves the dominance of the man over the Superman, which in this context the Superman is meant to basically represent God. It is it's really ironic that the movie that has Superman in it and a character named Superman and Superman in the title is this fucking Nietzschean in a, as you say, a very problematic sense, and yet Superman is not the representative Ubermensch of the movie. It is Batman that is the representative Ubermensch of the movie. He is the real Superman here.
So again, Zack Snyder likely understands none of this, but I'm sorry, he's the successful filmmaker making the movies that fucking kids are seeing. It's his responsibility to know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah.
And in this case, we have a movie that made $170 million this weekend that is actively promoting fascism, while we have a person running for president who is likely going to be a major party's nominee who is an authoritarian.
Yes. Who is fascist.
Yes.
Yes.
This is disgusting.
It's really... And I know there are probably a lot of people listening that are going to think that you're exaggerating this or you're taking it too far, but I completely agree with everything you're saying here. It is really fucked. It's not okay, and it's not something that you should just brush off and ignore and say it's just a movie, it's just a comic book movie. as you say, the grammar that this movie uses is meant to induce a certain feeling in the audience, as all art is meant to. And this emotion and this feeling is meant to be this sort of like power wish fulfillment thing, particularly for adolescent males. It's meant to be that juvenile male fantasy. And you want that juvenile male fantasy to be a healthy version of that, not this dark, grim, violent, brutal version of it where the guy who's the man, who's the toughest, who's the most man of them all is automatically the best person on the screen and the most good person on the screen. And you don't want that. You want the proper Superman. You want the Christopher Reeve Superman. You want the male model and the male role model and male figure of the movie that people are meant to aspire to be compassionate, to be empathetic, and to struggle with some sort of existential drama at the heart of the film on how to be a good person, and that being violent isn't the key to being a good person, and that every problem in this movie is solved with violence, both by the villains and by the protagonist. There is never any point in this movie where anyone tries to really like de-escalate anything other than like the tiny moment where like Superman is trying to get Batman to stop, and that just feels like it's a plot convenience and not something, an earnest action committed by a character that the director really wants. It's something that needs to happen for the plot to move forward.
It's appalling. It's just so, and this is where I got to the point where I realized, oh God, this is worse than I ever thought it could be.
Yeah.
Because we thought this was going to be bad. I didn't think it was going to be as offensive as it is. And just on a visceral level, just disgusting.
Yeah.
And with that, you have to talk about the way it treats women.
Yeah.
You have 4 major female characters in the movie. Yes. One of them, the Holly Hunter senator, is basically made to be stupid and weak for trying to rein in the powerful man.
Yeah, and is killed, brutally killed.
Brutally murdered. You have Amy Adams as Lois, who is there completely for the whims of her boyfriend. She is the MacGuffin hunter in the movie. Yeah. And she is made damsel in distress 3 times.
Yeah, and her role is completely redundant in the movie. She does nothing important. Like, she does her own detective work, but that her own detective work lags way far behind what Batman is doing. And her whole role in the movie is just to figure things out that other characters have already figured out like 50 minutes ago. And then eventually to get kidnapped and then to like throw a spear into some water and then to go get some spear into some water to then be like put under threat again at the end of the movie.
Yes. And she is also, as we said, overtly sexualized in her first scene. You have Martha Kent, poor Diane Lane, who is bound, gagged, defiled, threatened with murder over and over again.
Like in like the language of the movie, like and the scene where you first discover that she has been kidnapped, I think very directly is referencing the Batman Killing Joke story with like how Lex Luthor is throwing down those pictures of her like bound and gagged. That's obviously, it's not like, they don't like directly imply any sort of like sexual assault, but it feels like Zack Snyder really wanted to. He just couldn't because this movie is still supposed to be PG-13.
Again, there's an R-rated version of this. Yeah. I'm really scared to know what's in it.
Yeah.
And then fourth, you have Wonder Woman, who is the least problematic, but still problematic because she has a pretty sizable chunk of screen time.
Sure.
And the fewest lines.
Compared to a lot of characters.
Right.
Yes.
And the fewest lines of anyone. Even when she is part of the team, she doesn't get to talk. She is nothing. She is made... her suit is also really overtly sexualized as Wonder Woman.
I mean, all of her outfits in the entire movie are.
Yeah,
her first dress is so low cut, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's. She is there to be part of a pose in that last sequence, not to be a character. This is not a world with room for women, and DC is going to be making the first major female superhero movie. This is scary.
Yeah. Because then I think it's also important to note that like Wonder Woman is so not a character in this movie that she doesn't even she is on screen with Superman for like a handful of frames. She never says a single line of dialogue to Superman at all. No. She has like a tiny conversation with Bruce Wayne.
They talk around her. When she comes in, it's, is she with you? I thought she was with you. Not, hey, who are you?
Yeah, it's like, which is also something where it feels like in this universe, Batman and Superman, well, Batman should know because he saw the picture or whatever, but Superman should be like, who the fuck is this? Like, I thought I was the only superpowered person on this whole planet, but like, she feels like she again, like almost like how Lex Luthor is so out of place in the movie, he feels like he's digitally edited in. her like role in this movie is so pasted on, she feels like she's digitally edited into the movie, or just like most of her scenes feel like they are reshoots, you know?
Yeah. So the movie is actively promoting a toxic masculinity at the expense of a brutal vision of weak femininity.
Yeah.
I mean, just compare this to the most recent version of Batman, the Chris Nolan movies, where, and I think some of it is overly simplistic, but there's a large conversation about Bruce having to balance his masculine and feminine sides, the mother and the father, the part of him that is Rachel and is always the Rachel side of him.
Yeah.
And that there is a strong feminine voice in those movies. And Rachel isn't the best character, but there is a respect for femininity in those movies.
Yeah.
And there's no hint of the fascist thing in those.
No,
You know, there's Batman is someone
or the only hint of it is like at the end of Dark Knight with the surveillance aspect, and that's like the heavily criticized within the movie thematic component.
And it's Batman trying to figure out, should I do this or not?
Yeah.
What am I? And so it's like, just, it has not taken many years for DC to fall very, very far on film.
Yeah, no.
In this sense. But now let's make fun of something.
Okay.
All right, how that scene ends. Martha! You're gonna kill Martha!
Martha!
Why did you say Martha?
Who's Martha? I've never heard the name Martha in my whole life other than referring to my mother. It is such a remarkably uncommon name. Who is Martha?
In this instance, I agree completely with Mr. Drew McWeeny from HitFix, one of my favorite critics, who made fun of this, saying, it seems like Chris Terrio was on Wikipedia doing his research and said, wait, Batman's mother is Martha, Superman's mother is Martha, by gads, I've got it!
Yeah.
And it is the most bullshit, fake, emotional moment.
It's so ridiculous. It feels so insanely contrived in every way imaginable. I mean, all of the scenario feels contrived, but particularly when you get to the end, because Martha Kent, Superman's mom, was kidnapped by Lex Luthor, as we alluded to earlier, and so that's why he is somehow forced to go fight Batman, even though he is Superman, who is insanely powerful, has supervision and super hearing, and Martha Kent is like kept in some warehouse in Gotham, so she's within probably like a 15-mile radius of him.
Yeah, Superman
could find her and rescue her within the handful of seconds.
Yeah.
But whatever, it's a superhero fight. I will accept some manner of contrivance to bring it about.
Although there's nothing not. Let's back up a second. There's nothing not contrived. I don't believe a single punch thrown in that fight. It's nonsense.
I mean, the whole like everything about the fight, like Superman, all Superman Batman fights are just ridiculous. Like the whole conceit of the fight, when this is something I should have mentioned when we were criticizing the fight earlier about it being a boring fight and a dumb fight, like beyond it just being like sort of thematically gross, is that also it is the laziest fucking Superman Batman fight I think I've ever seen. That it is. And Dark Knight Returns has some of this, but it feels like Dark Knight Returns is a little more creative with how it does it. Where this is just like the only way you can get Superman and Batman to fight together really is just to bring Superman down to Batman's level, and that's it. Like, that's so lame. That's not Batman v Superman. Like, that's not too satisfied by that. That would be like if in Civil War the final fight scene was Captain America versus Tony Stark not wearing his Iron Man suit, right? Like. Yeah. That's not what I signed up for. I signed up for Batman fighting Superman, not Batman fighting mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent wearing a Superman costume. Like, that part of the fight is really dumb. But anyways, back to the Martha thing, for them to resolve the entire fight on some really minor coincidence of comic book history that Batman's mom's name has always been Martha Wayne, and Superman's mom's name has always been Martha Kent. And for that to be like the one moment where Batman goes back and is like, not only does he have a mother, which he tacitly recognized that this person must have parents because he was taunting him earlier for his parents thing in a way that was really specific. There's you don't know anything about his parents and yet you're somehow directly referencing lines from Man of Steel. I don't know how that's happening for you, Batman, right now. But so, it's not that he recognized, this person is a person and has family. It's that this person's family happens to contain a woman who's his mom and is named Martha. I guess that means that I shouldn't kill him. Nothing within that contains any information that feels like it would bring about some sort of character change in Batman to have him rethink his already insane worldview.
I mean, he is ready to kill Superman.
Yeah, he has the spear. He made Superman bleed, which is what Batman's really into for some reason, and is about to kill him. I'm really surprised that Batman didn't make Superman bleed by stabbing him in the rib, but we'll get to that stuff later.
Because again, bleeding is weakness. Bleeding is associated with femininity because of obvious biological reasons. Yeah. That's fascism.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake. Anyway, he's ready to murder this guy, and just hearing the name somehow makes him sane. Also, the funniest thing is when he rescues Martha, he's like, your son's a friend. No, you were just assaulting and trying to murder him.
No, it's like the turnaround on that is so silly that we have spent the entire movie. We have spent 2 fucking hours in what feels like 2 years getting to this goddamn point. And it's like, and now you're going to try to make Batman and Superman friends when they have, again, had almost no interaction whatsoever. We had like a tiny scene with Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, which is contained in its entirety in that trailer. And then you have the tiny scene where Superman threatens Batman, and he says, oh, do you bleed? And then you have them fighting each other. And then that's it. That is all they do together in the entire movie. And then they make one joke about Wonder Woman. That's the only thing they do. They have 4 interactions. 4 interactions in this entire fucking movie called Batman v Superman. These characters barely know each other. And we barely know them. They're both so paper thin. We know nothing about them. But then to make it even worse, like, they have almost no relationship with each other whatsoever in this movie. So yes, when he goes and rescues Martha, and he says, I'm a friend of your son's. It's like, no, you're not. You don't even know the fucking dude. You just tried to kill him. Like, you shared 3 or 4 sentences. You are not friends, and you are not Batman, you asshole. Stop pretending to be.
It's really bad.
This movie is fucking terrible.
It's really bad. I mean, you were talking about, I want to go back Forest for the Trees again.
Okay.
You're talking about the length and how long it feels. That's the other thing to note, is that this is just a colossal bore of a movie.
There's so fucking boring.
There is no spark to it at all. Like, say what you will about Man of Steel, but that is at least engaging filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like, there are moments that, whether you like it or hate it, are viscerally effective, right?
Yes.
But that entire fight is either disgusting or dull, and then the stuff with Doomsday is just mind-numbing, kill me now.
Yeah, just like the most just digital, like, looks like I am watching a fucking, I don't know, like tech demo for Unreal Engine 5 or something on screen, and not a fight scene in a movie with like characters in it that I recognize.
So, like, say what you will about Man of Steel, it is an infinitely better movie than this just because it operates as a movie.
Yeah, there were moments during Man of Steel, like long sequences of Man of Steel, where I was actively entertained. I don't know if there was a sequence, and I don't think if there was an entire scene of this movie that I was entertained for the whole scene. I don't think there was a single fucking one. Like, the only one that maybe is, like, if you count the Flash coming through time scene as a full scene in and of itself, which I wouldn't really, that's too small, but I was amused for that, the entirety of that moment. That is it. That is, like, the longest stretch of film. I was actually entertained. Because that is something we have not, like, stressed on enough in criticizing this movie and picking it apart, is that for the entirety of the movie, there is no sense of pacing to it. The editing is terrible to incomprehensible. The plot is impossible to follow. The characters have no character development, and thus you have no investment in any of the characters, which makes the awkwardly choreographed and poorly filmed fight scenes a billion times worse because you don't care about anyone on screen. And it's just, the movie just moves at a snail's fucking pace. And somehow this movie feels both insanely bloated because of, like, all the random subplots in it, and also feels like it is the most bare bones fucking no meat on it whatsoever movie I've ever seen. Like, there's nothing of substance in it, and yet there's all this confusion and jumble in it.
Well, let's get into the final act, because once Batman and Superman have finished punching each other, which really just means Batman punching Superman, you realize, well, wait, that was the whole story. There's nothing left.
Yeah.
So they have to do a new story, which is where Doomsday comes in.
Yeah, which is just like this little subplot they've cut to a little bit of Lex Luthor has Zod's body. The ship from Man of Steel is still inexplicably in the middle of Metropolis. How have they not tried to move? It's been 2 fucking years, and they haven't moved that thing? Because it's like they keep on cutting away to Lex Luthor in the ship, and I was like, Captain Wayne's like, how is he, like, where is this ship? Like, surely it's, like, in some government thing or something far away. And then, like, later, you find out through some dialogue that, oh, wait, no, that's the ship right there in the middle of Metropolis. I thought that was, like, this thing that kind of looked like the Sydney Opera House from a distance, like this white thing. It's like, oh, that's just a big tarp over the ship. I thought that was, like, a building or something.
Somehow Lex gets access to the entire Kryptonian archives.
Yeah.
He does the mad scientist thing where he throws Michael Shannon's body in... Poor Michael Shannon. He would have had to be on set a couple of days for all his scenes as a corpse.
Hey, man, like in Man of Steel, he gives one of the most convincing performances in this whole movie.
By the way, I have a Michael Shannon quote to read. While we're on that, let's take a break for a laugh. Okay. All right? So, Vulture.com did an interview where they interviewed just a couple of celebrities about who would win in a fight, Batman v Superman.
Superman would win.
Yeah. They posed this question to Michael Shannon, and here was his response.
Okay.
I'm so utterly unconcerned with the outcome of that fight. So profoundly, utterly unconcerned. I can't even come up with a fake answer. I guess I have to root for Superman because he killed me, so I would hope that he would continue his killing spree and become like a serial killer Superman. That's a new take on Superman. We'd all be in a heap of trouble if Superman was a serial killer. He could just wipe us all out, but then he'd be lonely. And then the interviewer asks, isn't he already lonely? Well, we're all lonely.
He totally fucking gets it.
Yep.
I bet he is fucking stoked that his only role in the movie is to be a dead body. I bet he is really thrilled about that, because he clearly understands what that movie is by reading the script, because you don't give that answer without knowing that. That's an amazing answer to that question.
Yes.
Fucking hell.
Michael Shannon, as has been well established, is a badass.
Yeah, that dude's awesome.
Yes.
As I said, gives legitimately one of the most convincing performances in that whole movie. At no point did I ever think that he was alive. I was constantly convinced, that is a dead body on screen right now that looks a hell of a lot like Michael Shannon.
That Superman brutally murdered.
Yeah.
All right. So we get Doomsday.
Which also, Lex Luthor mixes his blood in with Doomsday, which I was really confused. How is that supposed to be important?
Also, why does he make Doomsday? Because here's the thing.
Why does Lex Luthor do anything in this movie, Jonathan? Why ask that question now?
But here's the weirdest part, though. He wants Batman to kill Superman. I think that's his goal, right?
Yeah, I think, presumably, yeah. I think he hates Superman because Lex Luthor does that. That's a character trait that the character of Lex Luthor typically has, so we assume he has in this movie.
So he wants to kill Superman. He wants Batman to do it, but he's got Doomsday cooking seemingly as a back pocket plan. But before the fight even starts, we see that Doomsday is waking up, and Lex has no control over him. So Doomsday is going to happen regardless.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the Doomsday thing, because that was also when we were trying to make our fake plot. I was having a hard fucking time trying to figure out how Doomsday fits in when you already are trying to orchestrate this fight between Batman and Superman. Why would you also be making Doomsday when Doomsday is clearly Doomsday is the dude what kills Superman, and this movie does that. It's that's what that character's role is in the comics. If you're just going to do Doomsday, just do Doomsday. Why would you try to make Batman fight Superman if you just have this Kryptonian invincible monster in your back pocket the entire time? It makes no sense. It's contrived entirely. I'll tell you why it's in the movie. Why Lex Luthor does it is because the script needs a fight scene where Batman and Superman team up together, because you can't just have a movie where they fight. Even Zack Snyder is not so perverse, or someone at DC was knew well enough that's we can't have that be the entire movie. That's crazy. Batman and Superman are supposed to be friends. They have been friends for decades in the comics. The World's Finest started, I think, in the 50s, and has been a more or less ongoing comic since then, where they World's Finest is a comic book where Batman and Superman team up and are super friends, and they go and do cool stuff because Batman and Superman are the best of buds. And that's one of the things that's very compelling about those characters, is not seeing how they fight each other, but seeing how they complement each other. But they don't someone knew that was something that had to be in the movie, but the rest of the movie doesn't actually accommodate it. It feels so tacked on.
And I want to stop to pat us on the back for a second.
Okay,
because if you didn't listen to last week's show, we did play the game where we predicted the whole plot of the movie. We legitimately, beat for beat, made a better movie than they did. Because we came up with ways you could actually integrate Cyborg and Flash.
Yeah.
We had a reason for Doomsday to exist. We had a reason for Batman and Superman to fight. We had all of that. We were actually considering character motivations. We tried harder in 30 minutes than they tried in 3 years making this movie.
With hundreds of millions of dollars to back them up. I am so bummed that this movie at no point just cuts to Atlantis during the last fight scene to see Aquaman go, I must go to the surface world to save them all. That should have happened.
It would have been so much better.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been any more ridiculous.
No, you already had Flash fucking travel back in time to deliver an incomprehensible message for like 2 minutes on the movie. You can cut anything in.
And here's the thing with this Doomsday stuff. I mean, Doomsday comes in, he looks ludicrous. Yeah,
it's really bad CG.
Like, it's like the cave troll from Fellowship of the Ring, but way more out of place and like somehow less fully rendered. It's just awful. And they use him to do a destruction sequence that is way more gratuitous than what happened in Man of Steel.
Yeah.
They like just level all of Gotham. We're somehow supposed to believe it's all uninhabited. That's impossible.
There is like, that's fucking stupid. Because I will buy because they do this a couple of times where like as the fight moves around, they'll throw in a line of dialogue. Because this is why everyone was so concerned with the collateral damage in Man of Steel. Is because, like, well, surely all these people are dying, and it's not just, like, the context and tone of the destruction. It's just, like, the literal number on paper of how many people likely died. The fucking Zack Snyder doesn't understand anything. But there's, like, the line where Doomsday lands on the island after Superman gets nuked. We'll talk about that later. But Doomsday lands on the island, and the military guys are like, he landed on this island. It's uninhabited. I will buy that nobody's living on the island, whatever. But then he jumps to this massive fucking, like, dock area in Gotham where Batman is, because Batman lures him, Doomsday, back there, because that's where the kryptonite spear is. And then Batman just, like, has a line to Wonder Woman or the Superman or someone. He just says, like, it's okay. It's night. Nobody's in the docks. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, what Batman is really saying there is nobody important is out here right now. I mean, there's probably, like, hundreds of homeless people because it's Gotham. Like, the economic situation in Gotham is never very good. But it's not like you don't need to care about homeless people, right? Right? Why are you all looking at me so weird? It's not a big deal.
So bad.
Yeah, it's so silly that they just like throw that line of dialogue in there as if it's like, yeah, no, that's what we don't want to see our heroes saving people. We just want to see them fight big monsters, and we just want to know in the back of our mind, at least it's in an unpopulated, massive city.
But like, also just consider this, like, compare aesthetically the destruction that happens here to Man of Steel, because at least in Man of Steel, Zack Snyder had some sense of weight to the punches. When they went through a building, it was kind of cool visually, if you could turn your brain off. Like, there was some sense of scale to it all.
Yeah, the action was exciting on its own.
Yeah, here it's just blow, blow, up, punch, 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 explode, explode.
Just CGI barf on the screen at all times. Like, there was, like, nothing in the last 30 minutes of this movie that looked real.
It's completely incoherent.
Yeah.
Every second.
Like, it's like, and that's, like, honestly, weird. The most disappointing thing about this movie is that the one thing I expected is that, like, Zack Snyder's typically pretty good at filming action scenes and has his own unique style to it. Like I said, like, even though I don't like Man of Steel as a movie, the action scenes on their own are pretty good. I like some of the fight scenes in Watchmen. I like a lot of the action scenes in 300 because that's what that whole movie is. Like, he's pretty good at that. He has and he's very unique at that. And this, like, it just felt like he wasn't even trying. Like, it was the laziest, just, like, cookie-cutter nonsense action scene with, like, a CGI monster. That's, like, there's no sense of choreography, no sense of weight, no sense of, like, pace to the fight of, like, things progressing from, like, one sequence of a fight to the other. Like, it is like, and this is coming off of, like, having just finished Daredevil Season 2 a couple of days ago, where, like, the fight scenes in Daredevil Season 2 on a tiny budget compared to this movie are a million times more impressive than anything this movie does with all its massive amount of money in budget, you know?
Yeah.
It's insane, like, how bad the action is in this movie.
It's so bad. That whole last, I mean, it is just mind-numbing awful. It felt like it took forever to end.
It felt like it took forever to end, and yet at the same time it felt like it was rushing, because it's like you're introducing this massive monster, like, kind of out of nowhere at the very end of the movie. You're bringing Wonder Woman in, not out of nowhere, but, like, in the capacity she is in this movie feels like out of nowhere, and you're just having them, like, have this massive brawl in this city that's, like, no sense of location, and it's just, like, they're just all punching each other, and then it's over. It's like, what the fuck is this? Like, none of this fight feels like it was set up by the rest of the movie that I had just seen.
Yeah, and, I mean, Wonder Woman, it's fine. It's, like, it's not well used. There's one moment I like where she gets punched, she smiles, like, let's do this, and then jumps back in, and Gal Gadot in that one moment feels like she brings more life to that character than anyone else is able to in the movie. And that was just one tiny little enjoyable moment, and then you're back to just CGI barf, as you say.
Yeah.
And then whatever the fuck is going on with Lois in this section of the movie, where she throws away the spear, then she goes to get the spear, then she gets trapped, then Superman somehow saves her, then Superman gets the spear and decides to sacrifice himself, even though he could just toss it to Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Or he could just toss it It's fucking Superman. If he's super enough to be able to fly, he's super enough to throw the goddamn thing pretty fucking fast.
But no, we have to... Chris Terrio, again, he got on Wikipedia. He saw there was this arc where Superman died, and he's like, let's just throw that in here, even though there's no reason to. It has nothing thematic to do with the rest of the movie. Fuck it, we're already doing Dark Knight Returns. Let's also do Death of Superman.
Yeah.
Because those are two things that go together.
Yeah, exactly. Those are, they're practically the same story.
But also Superman gets nuked, where they're taking kind of a scene from Dark Knight Returns, but not really.
Yeah.
That was so bizarre.
And that's what I'm talking about when I feel like this sequence of the film feels incredibly rushed, that it's just like, Doomsday comes out, Superman grabs him, tries to fly up into space, they nuke Superman for, like, I have no idea why. I did, like, wait until fucking if, like, Doomsday's gonna come back, like, drop out of orbit and come back into Earth's atmosphere, then yeah, shoot a nuclear bomb at fucking Doomsday. But Superman's flying the motherfucker off into space. Let him fly the motherfucker off into space. You don't need to shoot the nuke. Like, if Superman doesn't even need to throw Doomsday into the sun, as long as Superman gets Doomsday into, like, a low or outer Earth orbit, in, like, a high Earth orbit, that motherfucker's never coming back down. That's kind of how space works. You had Neil deGrasse Tyson in the movie earlier. You could have asked him, hey, if Superman flies Doomsday up into space, would that basically solve the problem? And Neil deGrasse Tyson would have said, yeah. That kind of solves the problem. If you put a motherfucker up in space, he's not coming back down. Because they showed Doomsday can't fly. He jumps really far, but if he can't fly, he has no means of propelling himself in space. He would have just been stuck there. But no, we had to shoot a fucking nuke at him. It's because that's what happens in Dark Knight Returns.
It's literally the one smart thing Superman does in the movie.
Yes, it's the one, like, Superman-like thing he does. I was like, why didn't he do that to Zod? Like, that was basically the first thing I thought of in that Zod fight was like, grab him and fly to the fucking moon. The Superman has done that all the goddamn time. It's like but no, you wouldn't get to see the city get destroyed if he did that. And so he finally does it here, and then Zack Snyder's like, but we have to have the fight in the big city, that we destroy the city. That's what makes this movie deep, is that it evokes 9/11 imagery. Like, that's the only trick I have in my book for this kind of thing. Guys, we can't fly him into space. So well, what happens in Dark Knight Returns? They shoot a nuke, and Superman gets hit by a nuke, and that was what weakens him. But, like, he gets hit by a nuke, and then, like, 2 minutes later, he recovers and flies back down to Earth. It's like...
But they do the imagery from the comic, and on live-action screen, it's super terrifying.
It's terrifying and also very silly. It just looks like... And it also looks like there's no way he could physically recover from that, because the comic book is so stylized that this is like, he's supposed to look like a normal person, and then it's like after he gets hit by the nuke, he's all emaciated and stuff and gray-skinned. It's just really silly.
It's so silly, and then Superman dies fighting Doomsday. Batman is sad for some reason, even though Batman and Lex Luthor got exactly what they wanted.
Yeah.
They got Superman dead. Why are they unhappy?
Yeah. Wonder Woman shows up at the funeral, even though, again, like... And she says it's like something about like they only know how to honor him as a soldier. So it's like, what the fuck do you know about Superman? Why? Like, the only reason she's in that scene is so that Batman can set up the Justice League shit and some really terrible dialogue. But like, why are you showing up at Clark Kent's funeral, lady? Like, what are you doing here?
So bad. So we have the funerals. Apparently, Clark was going to propose to Lois because that was a romance that was compelling.
Yeah,
and then. There's the setup for Justice League, and then the dirt on the casket levitates a little bit.
Because, of course, Superman's not dead. Because the classic story they're ripping from is called The Death and Return of Superman. So,
what the hell? What was Warner Brothers thinking? Like, this is my bigger question, because why did Warner Brothers want a movie for their big setup for the Justice League that ends with Superman dead and buried and everyone mourning him? Who did they think they were going to attract? Who did they think was going to be excited for the team up with that as your ending and cliffhanger? You know, the last movie before Avengers is Captain America, which ends with Cap getting unfrozen, seeing the future, and then Sam Jackson saying, what does he say at the end of Cap? I forget.
I don't remember.
There's a cool line at the end, right?
It's a good...
Star Wars The Force Awakens ends with, spoiler, Rey going and meeting Luke Skywalker. That's an exciting cliffhanger. Yes. All of these are exciting endings that make you want to see the next one. This makes me want to go find Zack Snyder and punch him.
Yeah.
And you know who I'm not? I'm not a parent. if I were a parent and I brought my 6 and 10-year-olds to this, and it's a movie that has assault, battery, all this shit, and then ends with Superman dead and buried, I'd want to kill Zack Snyder.
Yeah. So,
this movie made a lot of money.
Oh, God.
I think they also shot themselves in the foot. Do you really think they're going to have a successful Justice League off this?
Oh, fuck no.
No one will want to see that.
No, I mean, they do. But let's talk about killing off Superman. Because because it was something that as soon as I saw Doomsday, it occurred in the back of my mind that they might do. Because again, Doomsday is the Kryptonian monster introduced in The Death of Superman. Who kills Superman? Or he and Superman kill each other. Only not really, because both of them actually survive. That's another one of those ones where, when you would complain about Superman killing Zod at the end of Man of Steel, people are like, Superman's totally killed before. He killed Doomsday. It's like, well, one, they both fought each other to the death. I think that's a slightly different scenario. And two, both of them survived the fight and came back a couple of years later. So no, neither of them killed each other, because Superman didn't actually die in The Death of Superman. But, so ever since they introduced Doomsday, I thought, maybe that would be something they would do. But it seems so implausible and ridiculous to me that you would actually do that in what is supposed to be your sequel to Man of Steel, supposed to the second movie for this Superman. How do you decide to take what is one, a pretty, an insanely overrated and actually pretty bad Superman story? The Death of Superman's not actually that good, so I wouldn't even try to do it in the first place. But if you were going to do it, why do it this early in a movie where you've done nothing with their Superman? They've fucking done nothing with him. They haven't developed him in the slightest. He's barely in his own fucking sequel, which is way more a Batman movie than it is a Superman movie. So it makes a lot of sense that it's Batman v Superman, not Superman v Batman. But then you take him and it's you kill him in this movie he's barely in. That's a sequel to the only other movie he's had. You're just showing absolutely no confidence in the Superman character whatsoever. What is your motivation to even bring him back? And when you bring him back, what is the audience's interest in Superman when one of the biggest complaints about Superman is that he's supposed to be invulnerable and nobody cares? How much worse does that become when he then comes back from the dead? How are you supposed to make that threatening again for a general audience? Because that's already a problem in the comics with how you can never accept a character's death in the comics because you always know they come back. But that's not necessarily something that has to happen in the movies. But now it does. Because you're not just keeping Superman dead after the second movie. That's just insane. You're not keeping him dead when the next movie you have lined up is called the fucking Justice League. It's not like Superman's not going to be in that movie.
Yeah.
It just pisses me off. And also the way they do it is they're so obnoxious with the religious imagery. With one, the kryptonite spear that is ornamented and stuff to make it look like, hey, you know what happened to Jesus on the cross? He got stabbed in the rib by a spear. There you go. Let's bring this back in full force. The way he gets pulled off, down and into Lois Lane's arms, she is Mother Mary, and he's covered in the cape that looks like the cloak of Turin. And then also on the left side of the screen, there are two cross images made out of the rubble. That. Yeah, it's there if you look for it. And Jesus was crucified with two other guys. And so it's the imagery, and then he dies and he's being resurrected. It's so obnoxious with that religious imagery and Christianic imagery, and yet at the same time, it does actually nothing with it whatsoever. In the exact same way that Man of Steel, puts it in there, and then in this, the fucking Lex Luthor goes on about God and God and God and God all the time, but says nothing of substance. It never feels like that is something that is developed in the movie. So it's just shoving this ridiculously over-the-top religious imagery down your throat without using it in any sort of constructive sense is kind of offensive at some point.
Absolutely.
The way you're you're just appropriating this imagery from
also
Christianity.
doing it for a character the movie actively dislikes.
Yes, yeah.
It's like if you made a Jesus movie where Jesus was the villain somehow.
Yeah.
They hate him, so why do they paint him like he's the Christ?
Yeah. And then the whole bit of the movie where everyone's supposed to be mourning for Superman, which is just makes everything in the movie feel so fickle and ridiculous because everyone was hating Superman, then loved him, then hated him, then loved him, hated him, and loved him, and then now that he's dead, they love him, and now Batman likes him. Either this fucking whatever. It's just so bad. It's so ham-fisted.
What? So the Justice League movie is going to be even worse, though. Like, that's the bottom line, because what they have to do is, here's what all they have to do in the Justice League movie. They have to introduce Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg, at least, if they don't have more. They have to, I guess the Wonder Woman movie will come first, but they're going to have to do something with her.
But also the Wonder Woman movie is going to be set in the past.
Right, it's a prequel.
So it's not actually going to, and I mean, I'm sure they'll find some way to shove something in, but it can't be as constructive to developing the Justice League movie as it would be if it was set in the modern timeline.
Exactly. So you're going to have all of that. You have to bring Superman back from the dead.
Yeah.
You have to introduce Darkseid, assumedly.
Yeah, you have to introduce Darkseid, who is a god from an alien planet called Apocalypse, who comes through a dimensional portal onto Earth and tries to take it over, is basically what they're going to have to do. It's just like, that's a big fucking ask for your movie to all set up on its own, when this is a jumping point where, like, the only thing that's anywhere near that level of sort of sci-fi ridiculousness in this movie is Flash coming through time, and that comes out of nowhere and feels like it is from a completely different movie.
And is presented as a dream sequence.
Yes.
Also.
A dream sequence and a dream sequence.
Yes. So you have all of that to do in one movie, and they're doing it as a two-parter, so it'll probably just end with the setup being finished.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but also, like, who is going to see that after this?
I don't want to.
Because here's the thing. The Batman, I understand the financial success of this movie. It is a film with Batman and Superman in the title.
Yeah.
It kind of sells itself.
With a huge amount of marketing budget behind it.
Yes. But how many people actually know who the Justice League is? Who cares about the heroes in it? It doesn't actually have their names in it.
Who cares about Cyborg and Aquaman?
And everyone hated this movie. It got there's a polling thing they do with movies to kind of gauge audience reaction. It's called Cinema Score.
Right, yeah, I saw this.
This got a B. Now, if you don't know, on the Cinema Score scale, a B is actually damningly low. It's very rare for a movie to get lower than an A minus because people just like movies generally.
Yeah, because most movies are entertaining.
Yes.
And if, like, an average person goes sees a movie and is entertained, they'll come out and say, I like that movie.
And it's really hard for a movie this hyped to get a rating this low. Like, I think The Force Awakens got like an A+ Cinema Score. Everyone loved it.
That makes a lot of sense.
It makes total sense. It gave you exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
And so you have that. This got a B. Just so you know, the lowest a movie tends to get on Cinema Score is a C. That's like what an M. Night Shyamalan movie gets. So this got a B. So it's very possible, actually, the numbers we're working off right now are going to be lower for the weekend because Sunday could have had a much bigger drop than they're anticipating. But either way, however this movie does, there's no way the anticipation will be there for Justice League, especially if it looks like this movie looks. Just grim, dark bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's a Zack Snyder movie, so it'll be exactly the same. He's been vindicated every step of the way by Warner Brothers, which is stupid. They should, there were all those reports that I think were probably true. They were probably thinking about getting rid of him for Justice League, which would be the right move.
Yeah.
But I think they decided to rush production on it because they wanted to, like, probably for the stockholders, be like, no, we have this plan and we're securing it,
Yeah.
But, God, it's going to be even worse. I don't want to see it. We're probably going to have to make fun of it on the podcast.
Yeah.
God, I am not interested in any DC movie after this.
God, no. Like, this movie is so damningly boring and just thematically gross. What little thematic content is there is all really fucking disgusting. That's like, I don't want to see this Justice League because, like, I don't want to see this character pretending to be Batman that kills like dozens of people over the course of this movie. I don't want to see this Superman again that's a petulant child that is also a murderer. Like, I don't want to see these characters that are pretending to be superheroes. Like, this movie gives me the exact opposite feeling that I get from most Marvel stuff. And again, I'm like fresh off of watching Daredevil Season 2, which is such a high that's like, Matt Murdock is so the Daredevil in that movie, in that series, and John Bernthal as the Punisher is so 100% the Punisher from the comics. That's like, I just feel like, man, these are like those characters come to life in live action in like their best form possible. And then this movie is just like, none of these characters have any resemblance to any of these characters from the comics that I have a lot of affection for. And I care a hell of a lot more about Superman and Batman than I do Daredevil and Punisher. Like, I like Daredevil and Punisher, okay. Batman and Superman are two of my favorite superheroes by far.
Yeah. No, Batman is probably my favorite superhero. So this is extra offensive on this one. God, it's so bad. And, like, again, the Marvel comparisons are inevitable because Marvel did this right.
And Marvel is the company that pressured Warner Brothers to push a movie like this so fast to try to establish their cinematic universe.
But it's so, I mean, DC learned all the wrong lessons.
Yeah.
Here's how Marvel did it. They started with a fairly modestly budgeted Iron Man movie. It did well.
Yes.
They did a Hulk movie, didn't do so well, and they recovered from that.
Yep.
They did a Iron Man 2, a little bigger budgeted, a little more on the world building. It was successful. It got bigger. Then they did the big buy-ins, which was Thor and Cap. Again, more modestly budgeted, with a clear view on what these characters should be. I think Thor is the one of those that got a little too consumed in the Avengers stuff, but still it tells its story, beginning, middle, end.
A fun, engaging movie.
Yes. They did well at the box office. Each one was kind of doing bigger than the last. And then they put it all in on the Avengers because they had the actual belief in that.
Yeah.
And along the way, what matters in all of those movies is that Jon Favreau loved Iron Man. Mm-hmm. He loved Tony Stark. Robert Downey Jr. loved Tony Stark. Kevin Feige, the producer of these movies, loves those characters. And those were made with love and passion.
Yeah.
Kenneth Branagh thought Thor was cool.
Yeah.
And Chris Hemsworth was having fun with Thor.
Absolutely.
And so they made a fun Thor movie that was made with passion. Joe Johnston thought Cap was a really cool character to do. He loved the 1940s setting. Chris Evans thinks Cap is cool. Everyone involved, passionate.
Yeah.
The Avengers, Joss Whedon fucking loves those characters.
Yeah, that is a comic book guy if there ever was one.
Yes, and it was made with passion. And the audience buys into that. Passion and love are infectious things.
Yes.
And that's what it comes across. Zack Snyder hates Superman.
Yeah. And he loves a very distorted version of Batman.
Yes. He hates his audience. He hates fun. He hates excitement. He has no passion for this material whatsoever. He feels like a hired hand throughout all of this.
Yeah.
It feels like it was made to fulfill a line in a checkbook. There's nothing about this that's organic. They did not start with modestly budgeted movies to see if there was any interest. They just said, we're all in. We're going to spend $400 million. Batman v Superman, go. And it is crass. It is gross. It is insulting. It is offensive. And as someone who likes these movies, I feel like we just saw the first of the death knell of this genre.
It does feel like this is
the beginning of the end.
Yeah, it's something where, especially since like they're not going to stop. Like it's not like they're not going to make Justice League, even though they shouldn't fucking make that Justice League movie anymore. But they're going to keep on marching forward, and unless they like drastically course correct, there's no way they can make it better. And I find it difficult to believe that they would be able to salvage Batman and Superman, these versions of them.
Yes,
like
no.
Maybe that Batman, if they like really try hard and get like not Zack Snyder but someone else to make a Ben Affleck Batman movie and do everything in their power to try to fix that. But even then, I mean, part of like this movie like started off on a really wrong foot for me, where it's like when you remind me directly, oh yeah, that's right, this version of Superman fucking killed a dude. I'm already out of Superman. Like, I'm already checked out. Like, because you already fucked out that character in Man of Steel. And honestly, going into this movie, I don't know, even if this movie had been really good, I don't know if I would have ever been able to buy that Superman again. Like, I might have already been... It's hard to tell because of how bad this movie is, but I might have already been completely checked out because of how badly they bungled it for me personally in the last movie. And I find it like... it would be pretty hard to get invested in this Batman because I would just be constantly thinking about like that dude with the flamethrower that he blows up, or like those people that he shoots with his Gatling guns in his fucking airplane. Like that doesn't go away. I can't just ignore that anymore, that this guy killed people, and that's not what a superhero does. I'm sorry. I don't give a shit what like dark violent fantasies you have, Zack Snyder. Like, it's my really honest opinion, there is no good reason for a superhero to ever very deliberately kill an opponent. Like, there's just not. Like, and for you to do that is just sadistic and violent and wrong-headed in so many ways that you just have no place in this genre. If you want to do that, go make a violent crime movie. There's plenty of movies where you can have protagonists that kill tons of people and it's totally fine. A superhero movie is simply not one of them.
Watch Daredevil. I mean, I have not seen season 2 yet, but I specifically think I've never seen this done better on film. Of season 1 of Daredevil, I think it's episode 8 or 9. It's the one where Daredevil decides he has to kill Wilson Fisk. Yeah. And he has this existential crisis, and it's interrogating that idea. Does a hero kill? And the ultimate conclusion is no, but it shows how that might sound like a simplistic conclusion, but it's not. It's a very nuanced and complex conversation, but getting to that answer, no, they don't kill, is actually much more interesting than just jumping to, yes, of course, murder boner.
Yeah, and Daredevil Season 2 goes way deeper into that.
Because it's got the Punisher.
Because it has the Punisher. And, like, at no point in the series are you meant to feel like the Punisher is a good guy, like he's a hero. I mean, you're meant to be tremendously sympathetic for him, and John Bernthal does an incredible, like, honestly, the best version of that character I've ever seen, because it is hard to watch some scenes of that movie, or in that series with the Punisher, and, like, not just, like, almost cry for this dude, because his backstory is so tragic, and he sells it so well. It's like, but, like, if you're going to have a superhero thing where, like with Punisher, with this anti-hero that kills people, like, that's what it has to be about, because that is 100% what the Punisher character has always been about, is that he kills people, and that's wrong, and he, like, sometimes he wants to try to get away from it, sometimes he gets pulled deeper into it, but that is 100% the thing with that character. That is, like, Batman's thing and Superman's thing, like, almost more than any other superhero characters, both of them, their main fucking thing is that they don't kill people. Specifically, Batman does not use guns. His whole fucking origin story is around his trauma at seeing the violent shooting of his parents in front of him when he was a child. That dude's trauma is about gun violence, and it should be against gun violence, not like way for gun violence, which is what this movie feels like. And Superman's whole thing is that he's supposed to be the, like, most good person on the planet. And guess what? Good people don't kill people. That's just kind of how it works, and you don't need to kill someone to figure that out.
No. There's one of the formative Batman stories for me is actually in this kind of obscure DC animated universe film from 2008. It came out with The Dark Knight called Gotham Knight. And it's an anthology film, so it's hit or miss, as all anthology films are. But the best one of those is their Deadshot one.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that too.
And it's this whole thing about Bruce has this, like, cache of guns he's taken from gun dealers. And I think whoever it is, Alfred or someone, kind of asks him about it. And it prompts these flashbacks and these introspections on his relationship to guns. And then they have the Deadshot character in there. And it is, in 15 minutes, it'll tell you everything you need to know about Batman's relationship to guns. If you don't get it, just watch that. It's perfect.
Absolutely, 100%.
And it's so many artists have taken a crack at this over the years. Some of them have gotten it wrong. Many more of them, I think, have gotten it right. Batman has a pretty rich history of great literature and filmmaking. And this is as wrong as anyone has ever gotten it, by far.
Yeah, I mean, back when I said that this feels a lot like All-Star Batman and Robin, I'm not exaggerating. Like, All-Star Batman and Robin is the classic, like, terrible Batman story that features a character that features no resemblance to Batman as you know him, and this feels exactly like that. It feels like when I read some All-Star Batman and Robin, it felt like I was reading a comic book that was about someone pretending to be Batman. Watching this movie felt like watching a movie with two people pretending to be Batman and Superman, and not those actual characters.
No. Again, the only way a Justice League movie could work is if you found out this was Earth 2, and over on Earth 1, the actual Justice League were horrified at what was going on Earth 2.
Yeah.
It's the only way. They've ruined it. They've killed DC Comics on screen for a generation. It can never work again. Yeah. I don't think that's an exaggeration, because I do think, like, I hope the Wonder Woman movie is good, but I worry it's probably tainted by all this, because they're probably going to have the studio wanting them to do this, this, and this, and it's all going to be dark and sad.
Yeah.
I hope the Suicide Squad movie is good, but that seems like it could be just as big a mess.
Mm-hmm. And also seems like it has, like, no connection to the DC movie universe, so, like, even if it does well or has, like, interesting characters, I don't think it's going to matter.
Yeah, so maybe we get one good movie out of it, but who cares? Like, they're clearly all in for the big team-ups, not for the individual movies, you know. So here's my biggest worry, is that Warner Brothers is going to go all in and kill the TV shows that are so good.
Oh, God.
Like Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, that are these aspirational versions of the characters that are so interesting. And I'm worried those are in danger because these movies are going to, like, kill them somehow.
Yeah. Hopefully
not
but like that.
I hope they just allow them to say they can do their own thing. Greg Berlanti, I think, has some say. He is actually an executive producer on these, I think. That's probably not, he would not make any of these choices, but
no. I mean, Christopher Nolan is as well. Like,
right.
I don't feel like an ounce of Christopher Nolan in any of these movies. Maybe a little bit in Man of Steel, like in a couple of
just parts. Totally, though. I mean, it's...
But this movie, like, that's all gone.
This has retroactively made me hate Man of Steel, I think, just as much as you do, because it's impossible. I think there are things in Man of Steel where you could have disagreements about them at the time of how it's supposed to be read. Yeah. You can't anymore, because now you know how Zack Snyder actually feels about it. You can't go back and read anything positive into that movie.
Yeah, his feelings on Superman are loud and fucking clear after this.
Yeah, this is tainted forever. So... I am still so excited for the Marvel movies. Civil War looks great. The funniest thing was at my screening of Batman, the last trailer they showed was for Civil War, and I just wanted to get up, walk out, and go wait for Civil War. Because it looks so... Everything that this movie did wrong, it looks like Civil War is doing it right. But here's the thing. My worry is... This is going to be the first of the last straws for general audiences of saying, I don't want these anymore, because general audiences don't know the difference between Marvel and DC. They're just going to see movies. Yeah. And so they're going to see this and be like, Civil War, superheroes are fighting again, I'm done. I feel like, and Civil War will probably do fine because they're marketing it so well, but I just wonder, DC has clearly shot themselves in the head to get the money. They have made a deal with the devil, and I think they're doomed.
They made a deal with Zack Snyder.
I just hope the other good stuff going on in this genre doesn't get sucked in with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean... where do you rank this among worst superhero movies?
I mean, it's really low down. I mean, it's this in Amazing Spider-Man 2. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, I might personally rank lower because Spider-Man's my favorite hero, and that movie's fucking really bad. But at least Amazing Spider-Man 2 had the common courtesy of putting a bullet in its own franchise.
Yes, that's true.
Like Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice would be tolerable if I knew for sure it was the last one of these movies, instead of it being basically the first one of these movies.
I mean, that's true. You're very right about that. The other thing is, I've been thinking about this. I think Batman v Superman is a more competent piece of filmmaking. Like, it has okay performances.
Sure.
It's got some scenes with visual coherency. Not a lot. But, like, Amazing Spider-Man 2 at least is kind of... It's so bad in some parts, it's, like, naively bad. It doesn't feel like... It's trying to be mean. I think it's just bad. This one is ideologically disgusting.
Okay, here, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a better movie. Because there is one scene in Amazing Spider-Man 2 where Spider-Man feels like Spider-Man, and that's where that one kid is walking home from school with his science project, and he's getting bullied, and Spider-Man helps him.
Also, the end of the movie with the Rhino, that's actually a pretty good ending.
Yeah, that's a pretty good ending. Yeah, but even having one moment where I'm convinced that's Spider-Man, that's a billion times better than anything this movie could accomplish with its the entire cast. Lois Lane doesn't feel like Lois Lane. Lex Luthor doesn't feel like Lex Luthor. Perry White doesn't feel like Perry White.
And see, this is
Jimmy Olsen's in the ground. He really doesn't feel like Jimmy Olsen.
I would say my favorite superhero is either Spider-Man or Batman. I go back and forth,
Yeah.
And part of it is just that I feel like I've been exposed to more good Batman storytelling over the years.
Sure, yeah.
But so it's tough because the two worst superhero movies are for my two favorite superheroes.
Yeah.
And then you're deciding, well, which one did it worse? And it probably is Batman v Superman on the level of, this is ideologically disgusting. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is just really bad storytelling.
Yeah, but also Amazing Spider-Man 2, it was really terrible storytelling, but the nature of it meant that, it could be entertaining for sections because it was so, disjointed and had, all those plot lines, sort of on top of each other in a weird way, whereas Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice feels like it is stretched to its absolute limit, and that makes Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice its greatest crime is that it's just incredibly boring. It's at least Amazing Spider-Man 2, I didn't necessarily feel like I was there for 10 millennia in the way that Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, I feel like Superman at the end, or when he gets nuked, I feel like that I'm just emaciated and dead inside.
Yes. I mean, these are both Fs, if I were rating them right.
They're failures as pieces of film.
They're solid Fs, as low as they can go. But yeah, probably this is even worse. I mean...
I would absolutely rewatch Amazing Spider-Man 2 before I would rewatch this movie.
Me too. There are minor moments of charm and humanity.
Yeah.
Minor, but they're there.
At least there's some color.
Yeah.
In Amazing Spider-Man 2, a bit of life.
The suit looks good.
Yeah, the suit looks real.
The Batman suit looks stupid in this movie. I also just want to say that. I think silly. The Superman suit looks dumb. The Batman one looks... They're basically just trying to do Frank Miller in live action, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, because again, Frank Miller's art is incredibly stylized. It's basically the best part of The Dark Knight Returns is the paneling and the art.
Yeah. So... This is as bad as it gets. I went back this weekend and re-listened to the episode of our podcast where Batman v Superman was announced before it had a title or anything. And everything we described of like the worst possible outcomes
of like it just being Dark Knight Returns fetishism, which is like what it sounded like when they announced it.
It's the Murphy's Law thing. Like the worst thing that could happen did happen.
Yeah.
The worst possible version of this is what we got. I don't think either of us ever saw a scenario where this could be really good.
No, but I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Like, I didn't think it was going to be a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. But, like, again, I at least thought the fight scenes would be good. Like, I'm astounded that the fight scenes aren't even, like, entertaining. Like, that's a fucking... That's like Zack Snyder's hit the bottom of the barrel because, like, the one thing he does good, he didn't even do good in this movie.
It is so bad. It's so bad. I'm really fascinated by the box office stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't really surprise me it did big box office this weekend. I was wondering just because I felt like there was a hype gap. I just did not anecdotally feel any hype for this movie with other people.
Yeah,
and maybe that doesn't... I mean, part of it, if you look at the dynamics, this was, I think, either the widest or one of the widest theatrical openings ever. They put it in as many theaters as possible. The reason you couldn't find a good 2D showtime is because they put it in as many 3D as possible to make more money. So they really rigged it to make as much as they could.
There was no competition. The movie they opened against was My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. Which
the opening in March was genius. Yeah. I mean, marketing-wise, they did all the right moves here, even though the marketing was bad, but they made the right decisions to make money.
Yeah. Remember back when they were around where Civil War was, and then Marvel put Civil War there, and DC was like, okay, we'll just move it up a bit. We'll look at it. We'll just get out of your way, Mr. Captain America.
But I'm really curious, next weekend, what kind of drop does this have? Because the word of mouth... I think
it's got to be severe.
Word of mouth is a very real thing for movies.
Yes.
It's why Star Wars made as much as it did, because it was really good, everyone loved it.
Yeah, it was the kind of movie that got really good word of mouth, and it was also the kind of movie that people would go back and see in the movie theater 4, 5, 6, 7 times, you know?
There's no hype with this.
I can't imagine anyone watching this movie twice. I'm sure there are people that like this movie because there are people that like anything, but... It is hard for me to imagine why anyone would ever want to watch this movie twice.
It's so clearly a product. Before the movie had even opened, they'd announced the Blu-ray and DVD release date and the different special editions.
And the R-rated, the extended edition.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that on the day the movie came out, there was a press release. You can find the date the movie's coming out on Blu-ray, you can pre-order it, all that shit. And that's a thing that's happening more and more, but I've never seen it done that directly and crassly.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting. Every step of it. Say what you will about Marvel. They make movies they believe in and love. And that alone is worth something in the world of art, I think.
I completely agree. And say what you will about Marvel, but at least they understand what a superhero is.
Again, it's worth taking stock of things. Batman has more good incarnations than you can count. There's plenty of good Batman out there. There's less good Superman out there, but still a lot of it.
Yeah.
Is actually a lot of good DC right now with the entire animated universe and with the current TV shows. So again, Supergirl, this podcast will be coming out Monday morning. If you haven't seen it, tune in tonight. It's the Flash, the Supergirl crossover. I think that'll show you exactly what Greg Berlanti and company are doing that is so right, where this got it so wrong. And you can watch that stuff there if you want some live-action DC. This is a super person with a vagina instead of a penis. Really doesn't make all that much of a difference.
Yeah. Funny how that works.
Yeah, funny. Women can be strong and interesting and cool. Yeah.
No, they can't. They just get blown up in fire.
Yeah.
Jonathan. And also, if you want to see Batman and Superman specifically teaming up and being buds and having fun, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited are both in their entirety on Netflix right now.
Yep.
So you can just go watch those. They're both amazing cartoons.
So really, at the end of the day, this movie doesn't, do much to my enjoyment of DC stuff. There's plenty of other stuff out there. Nothing hinges on this for me. It just makes me sad in that it made as much money as it did. A lot of kids saw it, which morally outrages me. And... they're going to make more of this shit. And I don't think they're on solid ground at all, but we'll see.
Yeah. And for me, I guess to wrap all this stuff up, I think what I most came away from with this is just what I came from away with Man of Steel, but this is almost even more dire, is thinking about, again, I'm a big fan of Superman as a character, and and Superman is such a misunderstood character in wider pop culture and in the mainstream, particularly right now, that there's so many people, I was making fun of them earlier with the Batman's just a guy. Those people, That's where the people that think that like Superman's just boring and you can't have a fun Superman story because he's just too good, he's just too powerful, and that's just so patently not true. Like, go read All-Star Superman, go watch any of the DC animated movies featuring Superman, go watch the Superman cartoon, go watch Justice League cartoon or Justice League Unlimited, or like there's plenty of like Superman comics out there that like you can pick up that are great Superman stories. And Superman is an amazing character that like, is honestly, it's kind of like that Dark Knight speech. He's like the hero we need, but not the one we deserve. And that, like, he is such an amazing character, and there's so much hope and so much to be learned from that character, and he can be so inspiring in his best incarnations because he is so powerful, and yet he doesn't actually use those powers to solve problems. It's like he doesn't save the day by punching people. He doesn't save the day by hurting people. He saves the day by listening, by paying attention, by being compassionate, and trying to resolve situations in a peaceful, non-violent way that leaves everyone satisfied and makes things better. He just wants to make the world a better place, and we need a character like that. And it really distresses me when the main representation we have in that character today in the biggest mainstream facing media we have, which is movies, we have Man of Steel, which does really poorly by that character, is particularly by the end by making him kill Zod, and then now we get Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, a sequel that he is barely in. When he is in it, he is completely unrecognizable. He's completely aloof from mankind. He shows none of the moral fortitude that the character is famous for. He shows none of the compassion that Superman needs, none of the joy that Superman needs. He doesn't smile once in this goddamn movie. And then at the end, they fucking put a stake in him and put him in the ground and kill him, and then Batman gets to go off and make the Justice League, because we can't imagine a world where Superman is the one who can lead the Justice League. It has to be the violent, broken, murderous vigilante. And that really bumps me out.
I think that about says it. There's nothing more symbolic than Superman being dead and buried at the end of this movie.
Yeah. It's a real fucking bummer. It's a super bummer.